Six-pack Lapadat. We got the young king, Joey B, Joe Bornstein. My man, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just got off church, like I said. It's Ash
Yeah, I was,
Wednesday,
I
so
was,
maybe
gonna,
what's left.
I was just about to say, you were like, I'm be a little late, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Little late coming home from church. I'm like, oh, you pulled the church card on me. There's no get, you get out of everything with the church card. I'm sorry, I'm late. I was at church handing out some food to some orphans. And I'm like, all right, well, okay, we're all good here.
Yes,
Never
sir.
mind. But so how have things been, man? You got sort of kind of got a big competition coming up, don't you?
Somewhat kind of big, I guess. A little bit of pressure, but I think we're ready. I think we're ready. Feeling good.
So there's a lot going on in powerlifting. I'm gonna get your thoughts on like prep for PA Nats, what you're excited about for PA Nats, what you've seen at Sheffield with the battle of the 83s, Russ's decision to not go to PA Nats or Worlds, only do World Games, and then shift up to 93. Your impressions of all the other 83s that will be at PA Nats. We'll talk about Bob Matthews, little update there. We could talk about Rondell. We could talk about a lot of senior at Arnold.
Yeah.
Dude, this is before you've won any of these major titles that are on the docket for 2025. But you're making your rounds, man. Do you feel the momentum behind you right now?
I definitely do, at least in the States. It's actually funny because I got international athletes and the stuff they hear at local gyms is pretty much the opposite of what I'm hearing with like my friends and the people around me. Like they're thinking if I go to international stages, like I'm losing 50, 60 kilos on my total. They think I can't execute to the international standard for some reason. Like I'm being dead ass. Like my athlete, he lives in Belgium, right? And we're talking about it last night, and he was saying like everyone in the gym doesn't see me going near 900 or not even like 850, right? And I'm like,
What?
okay. I'm like, what do I have to do in the gym to persuade these people? But regardless, I really don't care. I'm not here to impress anyone else but myself and fulfill my potential. But yeah, our people around me though, like my close circle especially, we're all pretty confident in my ability to execute. Like they see the work every single day. I know the work I put in every single day. So yeah, I'm definitely confident that I can put up something scary and come out on top.
You previously last year had sustained some injuries. How is everything? Because the big thing, you're 83 kilos, you're a
Yeah.
junior, and you were shifting some serious weight. For anyone who missed it, you did 900 kilos in the gym. Weight is shifting are absolutely freaking ridiculous. In the some people will be like, "Wow, he's gotta be careful and not be like rushing it." But
Yeah.
how are you holding up?
Body feels better than ever. The first injury that was sustained before the Arnold, that was last year. The only reason it happened is because intensities were going up, the volume was going up, and I was cutting at the same time. I was cutting back to 75 kilo from 83 kilo. Like I was 183 on the dot, and I cut down all the way down to 75. So that big deficit accompanied with the intensities and with the volume. And since I knew $20,000 was on the line, like I was just forcing my body over and over and over, and I ignored all the signs. But now, obviously, calories are a lot higher. I've learned from my past mistakes, and I have not felt any sort of like lingering pain or discomfort in the area. Right now, like since Raleigh itself, I've had 8 months of perfectly healthy training. Some hiccups here and there on like executions, but like never like in the sense of like, oh, something's hurting or my back hurts or something. Like, no, I'm healthy. My mindset's in a good spot. My body's in a great spot. Body weight's in check. Like I was 83.4 today, like in key, like body
Oh
weight.
wow!
Yeah. So the highest I ever got was like 85.5, but that was a couple months back, before, like during the holiday season.
Hey, come on.
When you're eating the pies
Oh,
and things.
5 kilos? Wait a minute. That's not 5 pounds. That's 5 kilos.
No, no,
Your holidays.
85.5.
Oh, okay. I thought you're 88 or whatever. Okay.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. 85.5 kilo. Now I'm like 83.4. I was 83.3 yesterday. Like I track every day. I'm not scared to post it either. I can like post it on my story if they want to see it. But yeah, body weight's in check, mindset's in check. My body feels super fresh, super ready to go. And I'm completing my deload week today. So or tomorrow is my last day of the deload. And yeah, after that, it's time to push, ramp back up, and just get ready to perform on the platform.
On your deload, do you do singles?
Yeah, it's super light. It's like RP 4 to 5, or not even 4 to 5. It just says prescribed 4 to 5, but Like for example, my first deadlift singles, it's 275 kilos, 606. So it's super, super sub max. Don't worry.
I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, it's like RPE 4 to 5. Like I'll probably do around, I don't know, 820.
Oh,
And
hell, I
peace
wish.
out there. Peace, dude. I was queuing you up. That would have been your first sound.
Well,
Your
hey,
first
last
sound bite.
deload, last deload I did. I attempted the 900 kilo the first time. I went off program instead of
Yeah, no,
deloading, and I did the 885, but I attempted like 905. And that basically boosted the confidence like crazy. And then when I actually had the singles block where I was supposed to total something big, I still went off program for that. I was supposed to do like 870, 865. I ended up doing 900 officially, but
damn.
I think it was worth it. I felt good. The mindset was crazy. And now I just have to like sustain that strength. Like me knowing I don't have to get stronger is a huge mental like alleviation right there. Like I don't even need to be better. I just have to put it together on the platform on the same day, which I have already in the gym with back downs, like insane back down weights. So I don't know. I'm very confident to see what I'm going to put up, but obviously it's all up to God's plan. I'm not going to just be like cocky about it and say all these other competitors don't got what they got. Like I'm going against world champions out here. I'm not going to overlook them. They've been in the game for so long. They've been at the top of the sport. I haven't even reached that top yet. So I'm still shooting up, even though yes, I may be viewed as the favorite. I don't think like that I can just overlook these guys and just like think I'm cruising to a win, right?
In terms of, just letting loose, like you said, you've added more onto the totals that you're supposed to do in the gym, etc. Here's the thing. So I've had on people on the podcast like Rory and Eric Helms. They're more like pragmatic approach than me, okay? I'm more hard on my sleeve, um, hyperbolic guy. And
Yeah.
I would say drop the hammer if you got to drop the hammer. And they've said certain times where they're like, not at all times, but if you're far enough out from a meet, now they have said they're concerned about certain juniors who are pushing too much too quickly from either burnout or injury or whatever. However, I also know tomorrow ain't promised. And you're rocking and rolling right now. Right now, this is your time. For me, I see no issues with it. Do you have any concerns whatsoever? Like, because you seem to be like you are probably the poster boy for progress. Holy shit, dude! It seems like every time I look at you in the gym, it's incredible what you're putting up. It's so difficult. You have to be the hottest prospect. Um, Everybody's talking about you on the. You haven't won like one of those major titles yet, and everybody's talking about it like you've already won it all. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. If you think about the hype, you want to talk about usually people reserve this kind of hype for someone who's like won worlds, going to Sheffield or won Sheffield, and they're like, Shell. You have hype behind you at this point. You haven't taken nationals yet. You're
Yeah.
you're about to. You haven't gone to worlds yet, let alone gone to Sheffield. So, and all of this obviously is with everything you've done in the gym, and still the 865 as well. You were the number 183 for a hot minute there. But what are your thoughts on first? Let's make this a two-parter. The quick gains and all the movement you made in the gym, do you feel you're treading around the right pacing? Do you feel you're risking a little bit by pushing as hard as you are because you are doing territory we haven't seen? And then we'll talk about all the hype after that.
Well, if you go back to like all of my training blocks, I've always pushed the intensity. I've always pushed that envelope a little bit too much. I like it's almost like I'm trying to force the ceiling upwards, right? I'm just punching that ceiling and raising it higher and higher. And I've always tested the waters on every week for my block or damn near almost every week for that I'm healthy. So even go back to when I was 74, 75, like obviously I wasn't lifting these heavy loads, but I was still trying to push myself and push that envelope, like I said. So this is what I'm used to. Like I've always liked testing the limits, see where I'm at. So I can't really give you the inverse. I can't be like, all right, I don't know if I'll be better if I didn't do this because I just don't train that way. I train hard. I mean, I don't train hard from week 1 to 3. Like those are
Mhm.
conservative. It's just that week 4 when I'm peaked and I'm ready to go. Like you said, I like to drop the hammer, see what I have on the day. And the mental boost I get from that is, I think it even outweighs any sort of like physiological negatives that come with it, right? So I'm gonna keep doing what I do. This is what I do best, and it's gotten to me, or it's got to where I am now. I'm not gonna change my programming style and the way I execute all my weeks. Maybe in the future, as I get older, I'm gonna have to pull back a little bit more, but at least for now, I don't see any negatives from it. I am listening to my body more, so I'm not going to be glued to a number. Like I'm still going to push myself really hard, but I'm not glued to a number anymore. Like for example, like this last block, I had a prescribed squat double. The goal was 295 plus kilos on that double. I took 293, right? I took a little bit less. 2 kilos is not a lot, but for me, I'm like, oh, it like kind of hurt the ego just a bit. You know what? I took 293. I hit it. It was comfortable. Depth was good. And that was still a huge PR for me on the double, so I couldn't be too mad about it. But yeah, that's how I always trained. I don't think I'm playing with fire out here. Like my body's used to it. It's used to the grind. And like I said, like the mental stimulus and the mental like fortitude that I develop by training this way, it greatly outweighs any sort of negative impact that I have physically.
I can only imagine coming into this PA Nats with, gentlemen with the resumes. These guys are like 10 years older than you, been in the game for so many more years than you, all the accolades they have, and you got 900 kilos in your back pocket now, though.
And
It's
885, and
it,
876, and
it's a
865.
it's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah,
It's going to feel different. You're gonna walk in there like, hey, look, with all due respect, what can I tell you? I'm not that intimidated right now. You know, it's it's gotta feel different.
it is 100%. I feel great. Obviously, like I said, I can't overlook their accomplishments, but powerlifting is evolving at such a fast rate that a champion from 10 years ago, like they can be a 20-time champion. I don't care. Like your total is what matters. What you did in the past, like the numbers you put up is what matters. You can have all the accolades you want. You can have all the clutch pulls you want. If your clutch pull is only 700 pounds, I really don't give a shit, right? Like it doesn't matter too much for me. So
Yeah.
I think sheer numbers is what matters the most. And if you have that included with clutch performances where you're executing against adversity, other competitors, and you have those numbers to back it up, then that's like the most elite pair you can have. Like I've done the Arnold, I've won the Arnold, I've won Raleigh, I've had clutch pulls for even like when I was 19 at nationals as a 75, I pulled for first place at my first ever national meet at 19 years old to win a pro card. Like I've been in these scenarios, obviously not the international stage, but for this national level meet, I've been in this scenario before. I'll have no issue, I guess, executing against these guys. And just like I said, I have the confidence because I have the numbers to back myself up.
Do you feel because the hype on you is so big, at least domestically? It's interesting you said that about the Europeans. Although I could say, well, I was in Europe the last time I was in Europe for the World Championships and then Silent Worker in France. And you hadn't yet done everything you were about to do. There was still hype on you though, but you hadn't yet done everything you're about to do. But I wish I was in Europe right now to get the vibe on it. It's interesting that they doubt you though. Look at if you want to shave some kilos off by the time you get to Worlds and say, well, the travel, the international, whatever.
Yeah.
But you're hitting 900 right now. How many freaking kilos are they looking to shave off? Like it's Germany. It's not that crazy a flight. Like if you're going to Asia or I don't know, American standards are still going to be relatively high. They need so many kilos to be shaved off to you. And then that's like, even that's June.
Yeah.
You were doing all, God knows where you're going to be at by June. So I don't know. But in terms of the hype, how do you feel about it? Because do you feel a pressure on it? Is it exciting? Is it everything you wanted to have? Or is it the opposite and puts a lot of pressure on you when you're like, holy shit?
Well, I'll for sure admit that there's a lot of pressure, right? And pressure does cause nerves, but it's the way you view the nerves that actually impacts things, right? So nerves are, you're going to feel it. It's an increase in adrenaline, but it only turns into anxiety if you're scared of those nerves, or it can be excitement. Like I said, the physiological response is the same between excitement and anxiety. They're both nerves, but it's how you look at it. And I'm like I said, I'm very excited to step on the platform. The pressure is, I think Russ said this, like pressure is a privilege, and like pressure
Mhm.
makes diamonds, right? So without this pressure, you can't be formed to something greater. And I think with all this pressure that you admittedly give me, because you're the one posting my videos out here, you're the one spreading
Nah.
more. I think that is helping my training. It just makes me lock in even further. Like I know I have like a big ask and everyone's expecting huge things. So now I know I have to like, get my steps in. Even though I was doing that before, like, 1 or 2 days you might miss out the month. Now I'm not missing anything. The meal timing, locking that in. So the pressure is just making me more refined and a better lifter and a better person rather than tearing me down. And like I said, the pressure just makes me more excited. The nerves I have are just excitements. So yeah, I don't think there's any negative connotation to it. It's more just like I just can't wait to perform and show the world what I have.
So it's interesting you say this. I read a book called A Fighter's Mind, and in every chapter, the author interviews a combat athlete, but also a couple like endurance athletes that really have to go through it mentally to do what they do, like marathon, ultra marathon, etc. And he, in one of the chapters, he interviews Randy Couture, two-time world champion in two different weight classes in the UFC. And Randy Couture says exactly what you said, which is interesting. He said, the difference, what you feel between excitement and anxiety are very, very similar. So, for instance, you have to stay positive. If the night before you didn't sleep because you're anxious, nah, you don't say that. You say, I didn't sleep because I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat. I felt it in my stomach. Couldn't eat because when I got so much adrenaline, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. That's my body telling me you're ready to go. Yeah, it's not sleep time. It's time to go. And you have to stay positive, and it's your choice to view things that way. Or you could be like, "Holy shit, I didn't sleep all night. I'm so nervous. I can't eat." It's like, no, no, no. You're not. You don't. You. It's not. You can't eat. Your body is choosing not to. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need it right now. It's time to go. You're already ready. You like he was like, there's no turning back. So there's no sense talking like that. Is essentially. And even though you're far out from the night before, you kind of gotta, it's the same deal. You can't undo the hype. The cat is out the bag. The, everyone's already looking your way. You might as well embrace it. And some people shy. And some people shy from it. You have not shied. You've gone on podcasts. You said you put 860 won't be enough. And I freaking, which was amazing, by the way. This is before, dude, this is like a year ago,
I know,
which
yeah.
is, which for your career is a long time. And I took that, and that was like what the podcast was called, and took the screenshot of it and used it as like that was actually the thumbnail for your YouTube, for like in the Instagram stories, whatever. And but you held up. You did 865. And it's that's pressure though. Because you not only said you do well, or you could play the fence and be like, I'll do well, I think you could be positive, but not throw out numbers. You were like, 860 ain't enough. I'm gonna beat 860. And you put a lot of pressure on yourself, man. When we were at Worlds, people were talking about that. You hadn't done it yet. And people are like, I don't know if a kid that young should be doing that. Saying that. You know how this is how people sometimes look at the juniors and they're like pushing too hard, putting too much pressure on themselves. And some juniors don't make it. They retire as juniors and do stuff like that where it's like, you just got here. You're retiring? People don't retire at 20. But you've lived up. You've lived up. And there definitely it feels different when you're doing it. It feels different coming from you.
I would agree, yeah. I mean, I feel the so back to when we were calling, not calling out, but I called the number 860 wasn't enough. I always felt confident that I was able to do it because of the training I put up at 75. So I'll never just talk on my ass. I always back it up with numbers. I'm almost very objective, like in a sense where I'm not gonna, if I'm injured, I'm not gonna come out here and be like, oh, I'm totaling this number. I'm gonna win this meet or whatever. I'm very objective and I'm just looking at trends and looking at data. And if the data says I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna stand behind it and try to do that, right? I'm not gonna shy away from it. Like my training, you're going to be able to see this block where I'm prepping these singles up, up, and up. And the last single you're going to be able to predict is going to end up around that 900 range. I'm not going to shy away from it. You're going to see the post, you're going to see the training and the trends upward to these singles, right? So
Mhm.
why shy away from it? And that actually translates to a whole other argument about like hiding your training and stuff, which I'm highly against. Please post your training. There is no reason not to. But regardless, it's a whole different, I guess, argument
Hell
right there.
yeah.
But yeah, like I said, if the trend in the data shows that something will be there on the day or somewhere around that ballpark, and you have the history behind yourself that you execute, you hit these standards, then why not just come out there and say what you believe in your heart? Don't lie to yourself, don't lie to others. Like be honest.
Well, so 860 at the time, how close were you to 860 at the time? Because when you first said it, you hadn't like when was I'm trying to backtrack here in my mind's eye. What did you put up previously?
I did 820 at the Arnold at 75 with a hurt with a like almost a broke back. Like I couldn't deadlift for 2 weeks before that meet. And if you look at my attempts, I was my second attempt deadlift was 332.5 kilo. I would have jumped another 20 kilo to 352 and a half, but my back was just fried after the second attempt. And I pulled more in training too. So like I was on pace for that 840 at 75 because I wanted to out total Outwood and then out total or not out total, but dots the 600 plus. So in my mind, my body was capable of 840 kilo at 75. So I was like, well, if I move up a weight class, I'm gaining 20 kilos. There's no doubt I'm not. So that's why I was very confident at 860 at the time. But as you know, my back got hurt again at junior national, so I wasn't able to perform that. But I still felt like the top end strength it was there. It was already far past 860 at junior nationals. I just couldn't reveal it because of the back injury that I sustained or re-sustained after the squat that I sank a little bit too low and re-aggravated myself.
Some of the early days, like when you're youthful and like, you had like, for instance, and we'll get into like all of like the what you witnessed with what happened to Russ his year, holy smokes. But the last year of his life, and your thoughts and all of that. But when you haven't gone through like take an L, have to come back, massive injury, go like Taylor that you'll end up facing at PA Nats, which is amazing. You're gonna face off with a goat like Taylor. But and I'll get your opinion on his comeback, what you expect from him as well. But all of those things, right? When you're on the way up for the first time, not having tasted any of those, it's you have like a youthful optimism that is like, yeah, but I'll definitely put 20 kilos on my total by the time I like it's just, but of course, right? Come on, what could go
Yeah.
wrong? And it's but it's exciting. It's actually like they're 100%. I guarantee you, with the amount of hype that's coming around you, I remember before that podcast, I did another podcast with you and I took a picture of you taking a bow on stage and I had a picture of Russ and I said, like, are you next for Russ? Are you Russ's next big challenge? That might have been early. That was pretty early. And then I did the one where 860 won't be enough. And then like we started cooking after that. And for some people, and here we are like a year later, this type of buildup, there's some people, all it has to be is there's a lot of hype on you, and they're like, if that hype train doesn't come to the station, I wouldn't be mad. Like they'll be celebrating just because there's too much fucking hype on this kid. This is just the way it is. It's with every single sport you probably see it. But that is the gift and the curse. Only then do you know where you're starting to make it. When you have people who you've never met, know nothing about you, you're like, yeah, I wouldn't be mad if that guy took an L. Too much hype on him. People are talking about, I'm sick of hearing about him. I'm sick of seeing him. Whatever. He's not going to live up to the hype. It's a gift and a curse, though. Do you feel that yet, or is it not yet? You have to go internationally and tour around a little bit more.
I definitely have to experience more international meets. Well, just I got to experience my first one first of all. But I have already gotten like some hate comments. I actually got a DM recently, and it was over like my 900 kilo post. I posted it, and I got
Russ,
like a swipe up. No,
it was
no,
Russ.
no, I like Russ. Me and Russ are cool now. We DM back and forth. Don't worry about that. But yeah, the dude was just shit talking. He was like, "Oh, you're not gonna be able to do this on the platform." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Who are you?" First of all, and then I just said, "Thank you for the support." Gave him a thumbs up and deleted the message. And then
Yeah.
on my comment section, I see some comments here and there. It was like, it was actually under the recent one, and it was some dude saying, "Oh, he's gonna kick out people from his weight class." And then someone tagged Russ, and
Oh
I guess
shit.
I guess one of his fans commented back saying, "This guy does sumo. This guy he benches no ROM." I'm like, "All right, brother." Like, all I said was cry about it, and then I not deleted it, but I just like went on with my day. So
Yeah.
I definitely experienced some of the the downsides that come with the hype, but majority of it has been positives, at least from what I've seen. Like maybe that's just what I focus on. I focus on more of like the positive responses, the positive comments, all the DMs I get. But if I were to like put a ratio on it, it's like 90% positive and like 10% negative, which I don't even see the like half of that 10% anyways. So
It'll be less negative than even 10%. 100, it's the noisy 2% are going to be the negative.
probably,
That's
yeah.
it. Not very many at all. Most, it's just like a Yelp review. Most people, when they're enjoying something, don't leave a comment. And usually, if you're pissed off about something, you leave a comment. So the comments, and even then, the comments will be 90% positive, 10% negative, and you're more likely to comment if you're upset about something. So you could think about how many freaking people are actually like behind you and excited for it and don't leave a comment. It's like you look how many likes some of the posts get to get like this is where I don't know, this is why I try to remind people all the time. Taylor came on here a couple times, be like, man, he's talking about some hate he's getting. I'm like, dog, you know that's the 2%, right? Taylor shows up at Worlds and like everybody's like, holy shit, that's Taylor Atwood. When we were at Sheffield, me and Taylor walked, this is like year one. Me and Taylor were walking down the street and some kids from like they must have been North America because their accent sounded at least American. Were like, holy shit, no way. And they were, I'm like, Taylor, like you'll get a noisy 2%, and that's all it is. However, honestly, you you know now people are recognizing you and people care. And it is sports where if you have the other team in brackets like Russ, we'll talk about how it's not Russ now, but like it was for looking like it's going to be Russ. You're the other team. It's it. It's an individual sport, but you are the other team. So you know how in your people who have sports teams and they fucking hate like the Philadelphia Flyers or some shit. And it's like I don't know, dog. That's all I had off the top of my head. I don't know if you're a
That's a
hockey
thing. I never heard that
fan,
before.
but or the
No.
Detroit Pistons. Man, fuck
All
those
right.
guys. Huh? Hate those guys. But anyways, it's the way it goes. If you're on the other team and people rally behind someone, but that makes you feel like you're actually in the sport. Now it feels real. Now it's like, oh, people actually care about a performance. People are actually going to root for Delaney. People are actually going to, you look, all right. Now we have, it feels like we got some skin in the game and they're fans watching like a sport, which is pretty cool. Um, but anyways, so what, all this time, I know I was hyping up what I felt was the inevitable showdown between you and Russ, and you've obviously you played along perfectly. You did your job by doing the 816 enough, and it wasn't the way you played. It was beautiful because you didn't take a shot at Russ like by mentioning by name or nothing, but you were just saying like when I come, it's going to be bigger than that, and like you lived up to it. But I want to get your thoughts on. Then we'll back it up a little when you found out that he will not be at PA Nats, he is not pursuing Worlds, and instead he's going to focus at World Games as an 83, and that will actually be his final 83 kilo performance before he moves up to 93. Was that, yeah, how did you feel when you found out?
Well, I actually found out pretty like not recent, but even before Sheffield even happened. Like I was already talking to Flex about it, and we're in the DMs. I was trying to get him to convince him to compete at nationals because that would be like a dream of mine to go against him and Taylor on the same day. Like couldn't even imagine
Crazy.
that, right? That'd be insane. And like growing up, I'm like looking at these figures, like not idols, I'm not gonna say that, but they were the prominent ones in the sport. Obviously, Taylor was 74. Russ has always been 83. So yeah, I was kind of bummed out that I wouldn't be able to compete against one of those legends. But yeah, I think it was a smart decision not to not do PA Nats. Besides the quick turnaround, because that's pretty harsh on someone that's as big as him, that's like cut that much or stay that lean. While also just like trying to accumulate some momentum going into the meet. That's just too fast. Like personally, like actually no, I would definitely do the meet because I'm a lot younger. I'm a lot lower in body weight, but I can see why he wouldn't. And then it also alleviates the pressure of trying to, like I said, like ramp back up and then go against someone like myself, where My top end, I believe, is higher. So that's a huge ask for somebody, especially that's at the top, trying to keep their name somewhat clean. So yeah, definitely I was bummed out. I was kind of pissed, but it makes sense, and I'm not going to blame him for it. It's the smartest route to go. And if I was in his shoes, I would follow that same route. But yeah, like I was disappointed, but it is what it is, man. I can't be too mad.
Do you think, honest opinion, if you weren't there, he shows up?
No. Actually, I'm gonna say I'm on the fence on that one. I'm gonna say no. Um, because I don't think anyone can touch his top end. That's why. I think his 871 total is pretty safe outside of myself. I still think Taylor and Delaney can hit that total though. It's a big ask, but I still think they can hit it because based off like what they hit in the gym, or I don't even see what they hit in the gym. They don't even post. So I don't want to talk too much on their training, but based off like their past performances, 871 is a big ask for them. And I think Russ will feel pretty confident in not going to nationals and just letting his total ride out. Because I think I don't know, he would, because Flex coaches Delaney as well, so only they would know that answer. But yeah, I don't think either way he'd compete at Nats regardless.
Yeah, because you think like, yeah, his total would be big. If he got that last deadlift, his total would have been 880, is like he was going for 883. Even if he
83, yeah.
dropped it 2.5 kilos or whatever, frick, 880 would have been a handsome total to really back down some people. However, you are coming. And the anticipation is, well, what do you think of a threat level 870 is for you?
Like out of 10, like a zero or a one, I don't know. Not that difficult. I hit it 3 times in training. Like there's no reason even if I take off 10 kilos from my projected thirds, it's already there. Like it's not going to be too hard.
And do you think um, if Russ is going to move up to 93, which he is, career wise, does this make more sense for him to forego PA Nats and Worlds, focus on World Games, and not worry about the clash with you? And your era can begin here, and he can move on, and it'll be like that. Do you think like that's probably if you were management style?
Yeah, definitely. It makes a lot more sense. It's like the Jordan and LeBron argument, right? It's like Jordan
Right.
is 6-0 in the finals. He's never lost. Not saying Russ hasn't lost, he has, but the least amount of blemishes you have on your career, the better off it is, right? No matter how high your performance was. Like LeBron gets cooked for being 4-6 in the finals when three of those, or no, not even like five of those finals appearances that he lost were not because of him. Like his first Warrior or him versus the Warriors 2015, two of his sidekicks, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, got injured. They're all NBA players, all star level players. There we go, and they got injured, and he lost to the Warriors in the finals. You can't really do anything about that. Same thing in 2007. It was him by himself with a bunch of no names on the Cavs against a super team in the Spurs. Spurs whooped him, swept him 4-0. What do you expect a 22-year-old LeBron to do against these superstars?
Mm.
And he gets ripped and torn apart because of those losses that weren't really his fault. So Russ can come to nationals, put up the craziest performance, go amazing, hit PRs across the board, put the best he got. But since if I go in there, do 900 and beat him, it looks like a blemish on him, even though he can do that in any other meet, get all the kudos in the world, get all the flowers. But just because he lost or came in second, it looks like a blemish on his career. So if I was his management team, like you said, I would not advise him to do nationals. Keep the record clean as it is. He got his comeback or his get back against Jurens. That was great. Ended off there. I mean, he still has World Games, which I assume he's gonna win. Like he has the GL, I guess the coefficient. I mean, he does have to beat what Shell, right? Like he has to go head up with Shell.
Yeah, but however, so the way that's going to look, well, first, well, I'll double back to what you said because you made some good points. But to clear that up, 59s and 66s are together,
Mhm.
74s and 83s, and yeah, Shell is going to drop down to like 71 kilos.
Yeah.
So his GL points are going to jack right the shit up. If he can do 820-ish or something,
She has already.
God bless, which he
Good thing.
has. So God bless. But we'll see because you gotta stay healthy, and Shell's gonna do worlds, and Russ is not. So Russ is gonna be far fresher than Shell will be. Shell's in his mid-30s and he's gonna travel the world. He won't be cutting like he's gonna be a small 74. He won't be cutting like he did to 66. We'll see. It'll be a tough order anyways, but
Yeah. But I think that'll be a crazy matchup regardless. Like they're that's just like goat that's like goat against goat right there, man.
goat
That's
against goat, man. Here's the problem. Here's the problem, dog. Shell's the goat slayer.
yeah,
That's
that's oh man.
he
I
collects
don't know,
goats.
man. I can't put it past Russ though, because like he has all this time to bulk back up, recomp, put up those crazy numbers like he did before, near 90 kilo, and then just carry that momentum in. But with Shell not having to cut fully to 66, like he did that 820, 825 at like 70, 71 in the gym.
Yeah.
So I can just imagine he builds upon that even further. So I don't know. That's a good point. The Goat Slayer, you kind of persuaded me on his side now, I think. I don't know.
Is that not a cool, especially how goat and like that goated and like the whole it's used to death for somebody's nickname to be Goat Slayer is
Yeah.
fucking pretty cool. Let's be honest. That's pretty sick. And then for him to be the guy that shows up at Sheffield and wins, it's like, oh no, the Goat Slayer is coming. What I do, no matter what, if Shell does drop to like 70, 71 and post something up crazy, it is what it is. But he will have an opportunity before he leaves the 83s to go one more time against Jurens,
Yeah.
one more time against Enna, and it'll be a good battle of the 83s anyways there. So he could, get one up on Jurens and break that. I know he's beaten Jurens before, but in recent times, they're kind of 1-1. So maybe he could be like, look, I'll split the tie. He gets to experience world games, which frick, man. That's only coming around once every 4 years. So that's one notch that he doesn't have. He's got Sheffield World, so it makes sense. Um, but doubling back to what you said about legacy, 100% agree. People they look for reasons. Even though he's lost, he's avenged those losses though. He's not sticking around. So if he takes a loss to you, there will be no even rematch. Like, because you're going to worlds and he's going to world games and then 93. Like that's it. That's where you shake hands and part ways. And to your point, if you were writing his book, it gets no sweeter. His even like world games, you're crazy to not take it. If it's there on the table, you already earned it in Lithuania at the World Championship. So
Perk's not
fine.
doing it. Perk's
What's
not
that?
doing it.
Sorry.
Perk's not doing it.
Yeah, but that's because he's having a kid. And even
Yeah.
then, I would
Yeah.
say, dog, if I'm your son and I'm 18 and you tell me what you did, I'd be like, you're crazy, man. I don't remember that fucking day. Like, ask me right now if I remember my dad in the room. I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you told me your dad would have been in the Olympics, do you understand me? He would have been in the Olympics. I go, Dad, what are you doing? What are you crazy? Go to the Olympics. But anyways, um, yeah. So if you in terms of like leaving on the right note, Sheffield, it'll get no sweeter than Sheffield was. If there's a story you're going to write, it's going to be Sheffield. And, he was saying, yeah, I know what people are going to say. Because I've said this before in another podcast. He can say, look, I'm the GOAT 83. I get to leave on my own terms. I earned that. And then you could say, no, no, no. You know what's going to happen if we face off. This is whether you pass the baton or you leave the baton on the ground, I pick it up. I'm taking that baton and I'm running with it further than you ran with it. Both of you were supposed to say that though. And both of it's supposed to happen in sport. In sport, the youth come, grab the baton, and run further with it than you could have. That's how it's supposed to be. And the first part I said is true as well. He earned the right to, like, he carried the 83s for so long on his back. He earned the right to be like, I would like to leave like this. If I am in a position where I get to write the ending of my story, or at least that chapter, because he's going to go 93. I you're both right. And both of you should be able to say, nah, you haven't earned the match with me. And you'd be like, all right, well, fuck, I guess I haven't won any of the the big titles yet. I guess I can't. And then, but you can also say, yeah, but you're not sticking around to find out. You both get to say that. You're both right. If I was either party, I'd be like, yeah, this is what I would do. And it behooves you. And I know you get that because you were like saying a year ago, 860 ain't going to be enough. And you knew how to create some hype and play the game. But I don't know, man. Maybe in 15 years, we'll have this conversation. It'll be some other kid breathing down your neck, and you're like, fuck, nah, we're all good.
I don't know. Maybe Elliot, was that kid Elliot Sykes? He's a beast. That
Yeah,
kid is
exactly.
insane.
There'll be a World Games coming up. It'll be a World Games year, and you're like, nah, we're good, man. I'm gonna hit World Games. I'm gonna move up. I said all need to be saying that weight class. And
That kid
Elliot's
is
like, God damn it. No, dude, your kid is probably like 14. You don't see, he's not even close. He's just finding the barbell. You're too young. You and Elliot are like probably contemporaries, if nothing else. We'll see. But yeah. So having said that about Russ, I was one of the questions I was going to ask you is who you feel is the biggest threat. Now you had mentioned Delaney and you had mentioned Taylor. Two interesting guys. First off, both of them proven themselves at a world's level. Both of them multiple time world champions. Both of them have been in high level battles. Both of them have been in Sheffield. Like these guys are not going to be intimidated. These guys know the world standard. These guys they've been around. Both of them I'm intrigued by. Sometimes I get videos from Delaney and he's like, you can't post. And I'm like, fucking, like, this is the craziest tease. Like, what is this all about? But he's capable of some big numbers. 900, Jesus, that sounds crazy. But he's capable of big, big numbers. Then you got a guy like Taylor that makes you, he did 830. Now, 830 is so far below you. At the same token, I don't know if you remember his 830, it was like his squat, it was silly. His bench was silly. His deadlift, they let him work, but it wasn't a top end. But 830, he had like a lot more on that 830 on that day. That was on that day. And he hasn't grown into 83s yet. And we anticipate if he had more 845, 850 on that day, what is he going to have in PA Nats? And it's Taylor. He's a GOAT. He's one of the GOATs. What do you think these guys are going to bring to the table? And are those two the biggest threats to you, do you think?
nationally, like in the States, obviously those guys are the biggest threats. But I can't overlook, Angelo, Chris Perez. We got Nori doing it. Who else? Sean Jin even. Like, there's a bunch of guys that can be north of that 840, and you're gonna have to attempt. You're gonna have to hit your lifts. Like, there's no way you can go 6 for 9. Even myself, I can't go 6 for 9 and expect to win. So yeah, those two are, especially Taylor. Taylor is a masterful executioner. I know Delaney's had some hiccups at like Worlds, for example, and I've also beat him head to head. So that's a huge confidence boost on
That's
my
true
end.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
Riley. Yeah, that's true.
but he did attempt, or yeah, if he hit all his thirds, it would have been 860. So his top end at the time was already high. And I knew he was coming off an injury going into Raleigh. Like he didn't have enough time to rehab the injury and build momentum. So I'm almost certain he's north of that 860 right now. Like there's no doubt in my mind. But going back to what I said about like whether or not they can hit 871, the reason I don't feel like they could is because they're going to be gunning for a higher total than 871 to overlaps me. And if they end up missing, then they'll be, south of that 871 or 870.5. Actually, do you know if we tie on body weight with the 870.5, like, or if we tie the total, if we're lower in body weight, do we qualify or they give
I
it?
highly doubt it. I think
Like,
I
we do
think you
871, right?
I think you got to beat it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying I'm gonna do that on my third or anything. I'm just little heads up for the coach, I guess. I'll let him know. But yeah, so um, Taylor, I got his top end. At least in the local meet, he was, I think, good for 860 that day. Like he was very sub max on the squat. Bench, he had easily five more. Deadlift, an easy five more. So yeah, I think he's a huge threat. And the fact that he is still underweight, I believe in his last post, he said, or like last YouTube video, he's like 81 and a half, 82 kilo.
That's crazy.
No, he's still very, very light, not nearly filled out. I mean, so am I, but I'm at the weight cap. All I have to do is like either gut cut or spit a little bit. But I know Delaney does cut a bit because at Raleigh, I was in the lobby with him and he was on his way to go to a sauna, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm about to go to the sauna real quick." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Because I was in the lobby spitting because I'm not a big fan of the sweat loss method. I like to spit my way down, but I've never had to like cut that big of a body weight to make like my weight classes. So yeah, I think Delaney's top end and Taylor's top end are very, very similar. And I don't think they should be battling each other. They're gonna have to battle my total. So I have no idea where they're going to end up in the rankings because it's all about who's going to hit their third and who's not going to hit their third. But yeah, those guys are like the biggest rivalries in the States, at least, like I said.
When I asked Delaney, I had Delaney on the podcast like a few months ago, and I asked him about rally, and he was saying, so Delaney doesn't pay attention to powerlifting very much. He's not like it's super into powerlifting like fandom. He's like there's like sometimes big news rolls by and like ask him about it and he's totally aloof and God bless. I mean, whatever. He's doing his thing. So, and he legitimately is like, dude, I had no idea Joey B was like the Joey B that he was. And obviously now you're on his radar. You were not going to fly off his radar. But he was shocked that when things happened the way they happened. Like he didn't know you were going to be like an 865 type of guy. And he wasn't, he said, like you had alluded that he had come in semi-injured or something. And he had said he didn't feel like he's 100% yet coming back, but he didn't know that there was like a threat level like that looming. But he like you hadn't won these big titles yet. Like he's not totally aloof. Like if you were like at Worlds or whatever, he would have been known or something. But he doesn't pay attention to USAPL when he left it. He wasn't, and he didn't think like a junior was going to come up this quickly. He doesn't listen to the podcast. He doesn't. He doesn't pay attention to like all the major posts, and he got caught lacking. My man got caught lacking. And he admits it. He's like, I got caught lacking. That right there. I came in not realizing the threat levels. Um, but there's nobody's gonna get caught lacking this time. Everybody knows what time it is this time. It's gonna be very interesting, man. I like you. I'm interested in seeing what 100% healthy Delaney looks like and what Taylor Atwood looks like when he goes 100% as an 83. I was hoping he was going to be actually bigger than 83 and had to cut a little. I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't bulked it out yet, but I'm intrigued. Does it feel better having a couple world champions in there like that if Russ isn't there, just to have those kind of titles, those kind of names on your resume?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that's the only reason I view Raleigh for what it was, because I was able to go against a two-time world champion, a two-time Sheffield appearance guy in Delaney. So that's the only reason I even hold that local meet with any type of value. So knowing that these guys are going to be there and knowing that I've already had the experience to go against one of them, like I said, it's a huge confidence booster. But yeah, it'll definitely bring a lot more validity to the national champion.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, like definitely excited because like I've only seen Atwood compete like from YouTube videos. And actually, fun fact, the first meet he's ever totaled over 800 was a Florida local meet during the COVID, right?
Yeah, I
And it
remember.
wasn't that same exact meet in the morning session, but for some reason Taylor went to the afternoon session as a 74. I guess because he was friends with like the meet director or something. He's like, yeah, I'm not
Dude, was
making
he
it.
ducking you?
I guess I don't know, man. My
He
my
ducked
600
you.
total, the 600 total would have been too much for him. I guess.
It was he knew.
I was 17, so that was what? That was 5 years.
Dude, you were 17.
That was 5 years ago when he did the 800. I think it was like 812 or something, his first ever eight or north of 800 total. So yeah, so to go from there back when I was like basically a fetus to like now is kind of crazy to see. Like now we're able to go head to head. It's more of a normal or even playing field. So yeah, definitely excited to go against a legend like that.
Did you tell him when you were like 17, be like, you don't know me now, but you you get
I
all
think
weird with him?
I commented on his post about it actually, and I was like, "See you in like 2 weeks or something," and it was like an ancient post. They're not gonna be able to find it now, but
That's
yeah,
amazing. But you like leading into that meet?
yeah. Leading into that meet when I was 17, I was like, "See you in 2 weeks," and I didn't get a
God,
comment back or anything, but still, it was
you
funny.
didn't. He didn't acknowledge. You know you got to do that for this one too.
Yeah, if
See you in two.
he posts something nice, I'll do it.
Yeah. You put, I'll see you in 2 weeks. This time you'll get a lot more attention if you do it this time. I'll tell you that right now. A lot more attention. What about internationally speaking? Do you see threat levels internationally?
100%. We got Jurin's the world champ. I know Russ beat him in the rematch, but once you're world champ, you gotta like either get that title back or like maintain that title or it gets relinquished. So until Worlds, he is still the reigning world champion. Can't take that from him. So he's like, I guess, the guy to beat in a sense. But I think the stronger guy to beat, the guy with more momentum behind it, is obviously Ade, right? He's also a young guy like myself. He's 25, I believe, so
Yeah.
24, so a little bit older, but still very, very young. Crazy momentum. He had the winning pool in his hand at Sheffield, so he has the highest top end out of everyone on the planet besides myself. So I think he's more of a threat, but Jurgens is still the guy to beat.
What did you think about Sheffield? It was interesting.
Yeah.
Going into Sheffield, Ade had so much momentum behind him. First off, a couple of people were commenting how deadlifting over 800 pounds in the 83s at one point was like crazy. That was huge. That meant you're the biggest deadlifter in the world. Now there's a few of you guys, and Ade Omasakin's one of them. In Ade's top end, I agree, looks like it could be like he hit 861, but it was relatively smooth in some of the numbers he was hitting. I was surprised going into Sheffield. First off, you had Jurgens who won the showdown, and I knew Jurgens was going to be stronger than he ever was before. Even Jurgens on a quote unquote bad day was like, what did he do at Sheffield? I can't remember off the top of my head. It was like 850 something or whatever. And that was a
Yeah.
bad day. As a day where he's missing lifts and he felt horrible. So what was he on a good day? I mean, he might have been over 870 something. Adio Masakin, I got no idea where his top end was, but we did not see it at Sheffield. And then Russ just having he had a day. He missed his last deadlift. 100% he missed his last deadlift. If those guys were closer, maybe he would have went a little more conservative. Who the frick knows? I don't know. But either way, what were your thoughts when you leading into it, watching it? Because I know a lot of people like Joey B should be there in the comments. Obviously, that's not really how the qualifications work, but it would have been crazy if they threw you in there. But you're young as hell. Like you could have 10 Sheffields by the time this is all over. But anyways, it was good to give what were your thoughts leading into it? Who did you think was going to win? And then what did you think about it when you were watching it, the battle unfold?
So going into the meet, I actually thought Jurgens was going to win, but I thought Ade had the highest top end regardless. But due to his lack of inexperience, or yeah, to the lack of inexperience he had on the international stage with the head-to-heads, because 861 was at like a Western Euro, I believe.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
he didn't go against anyone, and he historically hasn't gone really against any heavy hitters. So I thought the inexperience would have gone to him against the Russ and Jurgens against that battle. So I picked Jurgens to win because I thought he had like the second highest top end, or at least similar to Russ. But with the momentum from Worlds, with his level of execution in the past, I actually had a lot of faith that he was going to come out on top. Not saying I didn't believe in Russ. I still thought Russ was going to have a crazy day because he wanted to get his get back. He had a lot of motivation to perform to the highest standards, and he was sinking his squats. He was pausing his benches. His bench was blowing up. He made all these adjustments in training. So I knew Russ was going to have a day. Like I didn't know he was going to have that type of day, but I thought he was going to PR his total. But I just didn't think the other two competitors were going to fall that short, I'd say. I mean, Ade, I did kind of predict because I said that inexperience would have gone into the execution, which it ended up doing on that third time deadlift. But his top end was still insanely high, which was predictable. And then Jurgens, I was just kind of shocked behind that one. I thought he was going to come in looking a lot better. I've heard some rumors about his training and how it was going, and he had some crazy numbers in the gym.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of faith behind him. But it happens. It's sports. Everyone's gonna have a bad day. I can have a bad day even, and it's unpredictable sometimes. Shit just happens, and sometimes it's a bad day to have a bad day, like you said. So, yeah, I honestly thought Russ was gonna be either on second or third, and Jurgens was gonna take it home, but it didn't happen that way. Good for us. He's the GOAT 83, solidified the GOAT 83. So I'm happy for him. And I know the other two guys are extremely motivated now. So they're gonna bring their all, they're gonna bring their best at Worlds. So definitely looking forward to go against even a bigger challenge after Nationals.
Do you look forward to having like rivalries like this? Like obviously Russ had this run when he was on top, and it looks like you're poised to have a similar run. I mean, this is early freaking days. I got you. But it looks like you have a spread. Proof will be in the pudding very shortly.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you would like to have a run like Russ when he was 20 kilos ahead and asserting dominance and being that guy? Or would you like to have a rival that you go back and forth with and you might even take an L and you got to come back and try to win on the big stage?
So I always strive to be like the best or like push myself beyond my capabilities, right? So I'm always going to try to have that gap as much as possible. That's what I prefer. But I also want someone right behind me that if I miss a lift, I'm done, right? I don't want to be winning by 50 kilos, but also I'm not going to like hold back my training to only win by, 20 kilos, right? Almost like what Rondell said. Like I listened to your podcast today, right? Like Rondell, he views Bob as, or anyone at least around that 900 kilo total, apparently, that he views them as up and comers, and that's enough of a close enough competitor to keep pushing him and getting him better. So even though yes, he has a monster spread on these guys, Rondell, like he's still viewing these up and comers as huge and literal threats. So I want to be like in that same position, but obviously I can't control everyone else's progression. So I'm always gonna have open arms for competitors. But similar to Russ, I want to have that long duration of dominance, but I don't want that long duration of stagnance. I want to continue dominating, but increasing that total. I don't want to be stuck.
Mm.
I know he was stuck at that 840 range. Like I don't want to be stuck at like that 880, 900 range for years on end. Like I still want to improve, 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 but dominate through all those years of improvement at the same time. So yeah, it's a kind of both. Like I still think I can have a rivalry with someone and continue to beat them. Like I don't think I can't. But I'm always going to try to like have a huge or the biggest gap I possibly can when going against these guys set up.
You heard that podcast. What did you think about Colton when I read his story? He's from the Untested,
Yeah.
and he was saying people talk about head to heads and being competitive and competing, but I prefer to not just beat somebody by 2.5 kilos. I'm paraphrasing, obviously now, and I prefer just like run like drop the biggest total possible, and I don't really care if I have a head to head there. What are your thoughts on that?
So I understand where he's coming from. Like he's basically saying don't like hold back. Don't be too reserved in training. Like actually push yourself past that ceiling, that genetic limit that you're trying to achieve. But then I know Rondell was saying that having competition makes you better, sharpens you, right? Iron sharpens iron. So it's kind of like both. Like you obviously I'm not going to try to sit in the pack with all the other 83s and try to just be competitive with them. I'm always going to try to keep myself away from them and keep pushing my limit as high as I can, regardless of who's even in the class. Like these guys can be like sub 800 kilo. It wouldn't matter to me. I'm still gonna go as hard as I can and push against like even the weight class above myself, right? Like that's actually a big goal before the Sheffield happened. Like my coach and I were like, "Yo, what if we like out total the 93s at nationals? That'd be insane." But then I saw the 917, and I was like, "All right, like that's a little out of my ballpark. Maybe in the future, but definitely not now. I'm not gunning for that." But yeah, I'll always push against someone above me, regardless of how close someone is beneath me. So I get what Colton was saying. Like, don't like marinate with the people around you. Try to go above and beyond. But like your competitors or people within the sport help you go above and beyond. And those people in the sport that help me go above and beyond are the weight classes above me, and obviously the guys below me, like nipping on my heels at the same time.
Did you also, so in that podcast, now it's out. I didn't realize when I recorded that with Rondell, but apparently Bob Matthews has decided he is not doing PA Nats.
Okay, that's new
So
news, I
this is
guess.
news to you too. So
Yeah. Okay.
he's not doing PA Nats, and thus he is not doing Worlds.
Okay.
And just like Russ, he's focusing exclusively on World Games.
Oh, why? Who's doing the
That
World
is a
Cup?
good question, young man.
Rondell's not doing the World Games.
Like,
What?
so Bob did not know Rondell was going to end up at PA Nats.
Okay.
But so he didn't know he was going to miss out on this massive showdown with Rondell. And Rondell, obviously, and neither did I, realize that Rondell showing up at PA Nats was we were going to not have Bob there. Bob was never going to PA Nats because he chose to not go to Worlds to only focus on World Games. Now here's the thing. His situation is not like Russ's situation. Russ just competed at Sheffield. Bob has not competed since World Championships in June. World Games is August. In, very few sports do you just play once a year or less. That is a pretty big move to go all in World Games. I'm not sure if he was injured or I'm not sure what the heck Bob is gonna do dance to his own beat. That's a fact. But holy smokes, had I known ahead of time and I had Bob on the podcast and he told me his plans, if that was his plans, like I just want to focus on World Games, I would have told him, my man, you got to do PA Nats. I don't know what you think the winning total is going to be at PA Nats or the winning total is going to be at Worlds, but if you did 10-20, which he did in the gym, that should do it. You will
Yeah.
probably need less than 10-20. You have enough time to do PA Nats and then Worlds. Everybody is who's going through America. So the real question would be, would Worlds in June disrupt World Games in August? But at World Games, there won't be Rondell. And what do you got to lose? Like, I don't think you even have to drop the hammer for Worlds if you got 10-20 in your back pocket because Rondell won't be there. If I would have known ahead of time and had
Yeah.
him on the podcast like this, I would have said to him, let's walk through this. Let's walk through this together. And let me tell you about the benefits. Because you also, from Worlds, give up Sheffield. You give up PA Nats, then you give up Worlds, then you give up Sheffield again. It's a lot of giving up. There's a lot to just focus on World Games. You really gave up a lot of opportunities. And a lot of people are going to watch PA Nats. A lot of people, even way more, are going to watch Worlds. And even more on top of that, are going to watch Sheffield. You gave up a lot for a sport that you're now playing once a year or slightly less. And your prime is not forever.
How'd you find this out?
Um, freaking once we did the podcast, everybody and their mother was like, hey, actually Rondell told me. Rondell messaged Bob and said, hey, I don't know, maybe your name's just not up yet, it hasn't been updated, but the roster doesn't have your name on it.
Yeah.
And Bob's like, yeah, I'm not doing PA Nats. And Rondell was like, holy shit, dude, I am. This is it. This is supposed to be me versus you. This is the big one. You understand, Bob could have had Rondell at PA Nats, the big one, then Worlds, then World Games, then Sheffield. Like he would have had massive, massive, massive. The impact you would have on your calendar year would be, you can't even calculate all the experiences you would have. Grab yourself a videographer and have them tour around with you to all these events because you're going to have the life of a rock star. Rondell at PA Nats, then the World Championships, then World Games, then Sheffield. Are you kidding me? That is like the biggest of big runs. And no matter what happens versus Rondell. And
I'm
my
not sure what
dog,
his motives are. What are his motives in the sport then? Like, if it's not greatness and collecting titles, and I thought it was Rondell. Like, I thought that was the number one
well,
thing.
he
And
didn't know Rondell. Here's the thing.
I
I'll
don't know.
give him
Rondell didn't know he
this.
was competing either. Rondell just found out he was competing. So if they're both finding out at the same time, they can just clash out together. It's
Well,
fair. Rondell's
well,
coming off a huge block. He's
here's the
cooked.
problem. Here's the problem. Here's the one piece. Um, Bob didn't find out Rondell would be at PA Nats until after PA Nats registration closed.
Okay.
But this is it. Here's the thing. Frig man. He didn't compete since Worlds, right? So it's like, why wouldn't you just do PA Nats, clash with Big Dev, who's a phenomenal lifter in his own right? Big Dev is gaining steam. Like he's not quite on Bob level where he's doing 10-20 in the freaking gym, but
Mhm.
he's a world class. He could win worlds. He
I agree.
100% can win worlds. He might even push that Bob's world record. He's phenomenal. Go head to head with him. you got plenty of time. You got to show up. Like, if this is your job, you got to show up at work more than once a year. You got to do it for fans, just to like gain momentum. Even looking back, you're going to be like, I should have showed up for work more often because this is the funnest. You know, it's tough as a powerlifting fan. Um, and like he didn't know Rondell was going to be there, but on the flip side, it's saying no to so much, man. When I found out, I couldn't believe it.
I
I was
can't
like,
believe it.
Rondell,
Now.
this is insane.
You're telling me right now, I'm not believing it. So that's pretty insane. That is. I need to know what are his motives. Like you, if you get him on the podcast again, try to like break down his like the psychology behind this because I don't know if like I'm not understanding it or like it's my issue or something. But like that's like a dream. Like first of all, opting out of Sheffield that was crazy, and now this news is like even I don't even know. I can't even give you words to say, man. I'm such the opposite type of lifter. Like I'm doing this to cement myself within the sport and build a legacy. So for someone to forsake all of that for just Rondell, like come on, Rondell is like he's a great guy and all, but he ain't worth all that. Like come on, man.
Well, so he's gonna do I think he's actually targeting World Games because Rondell's not at World Games.
Yeah,
I Here's the thing. So Rondell's we all knew Rondell's suspension was going to be over in February. So we knew Rondell was back. We didn't know where, but you could clash with Rondell at some point in 2025. But so Rondell, he didn't know Rondell was going to be at Powerlifting America Nationals. He didn't, and Rondell will not be at Worlds. But still, to not have those two experiences clash with Big Dev, even if you didn't know Rondell was going to be there, you knew Big Dev was. And it's an American title. And like it's a massive competition. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. Clash there, go to Worlds, take another world title, go to Sheffield, do Sheffield, and you got World Games. But to only do World Games, and then somewhere along the lines, you could clash with Rondell. We would have figured it out. Well, I thought we figured it out. That's why I did the podcast with Rondell. I thought we did, but to Bobb's defense, he did not know. And the deadline passed, and he's like, "Fuck, it's too late." I'm sure he would have signed up for Powerlifting American Nationals if he knew beforehand.
but I'm sure they can make an exception for Bob. So like
No,
if
dog,
you
you do.
email them, if you email them, come on, like they're gonna say no to Bob Matthews, man, like the world champ. They ain't saying no. I can't believe that. They ain't gonna say no to him.
Robert Keller goes, I found an email. I was like, okay, all right. You found an email, did you? It was in my junk box. And you know what? I feel bad for the young man. He emailed me. It was an e-transfer in there as well. He paid and everything. So you know what? We're gonna put him on the roster.
No one's gonna go against that. Don't worry. No one's gonna say shit about that. Trust
No,
me.
say
Everybody on the planet wants to see this fight or this match.
everybody, everybody be like, nobody say a fucking peep.
Yeah.
Everybody just let this happen. Okay, the kid made a mistake. I don't know. He's not himself sometimes, but he didn't know. All right, let him go to PA Nats, and then let him think on it about Worlds. And I would sit him down after PA Nats and be like, Bob, listen to me, my man. You got to do Worlds, buddy. You got to do it, buddy. You're going to be really upset with yourself when you look back at all this. But I don't know, man. It is like the last little bit has he's in 2025 he'll of Miss Sheffield, Miss PA Nats, and Miss Worlds. My God, that's a hell of a three meets in a row to miss by choice.
No, that's like
He
that's the
chose to sit out Sheffield, PA Nats, and then Worlds.
legacy making competitions too. So yeah, I'm
It's
dumbfounded, man. I have no opinions besides like just straight up shock. Like that's crazy to hear.
I wish I didn't know I couldn't yeah, it's too late for PA Nats, which means obviously for Worlds, which means obviously the follow-up Sheffield. Um, but frig me, he better do damn good at World Games. And I tell you what, it's in China. He better fall in love with some Chinese lady and fucking meet the love of his life, and it's all worth it. And he goes, baby, I would do it all over again. And I'm like, okay, all right, that makes sense. And like Coca-Cola and Nike. CEOs happen to be there for some fucking reason, some conference totally unrelated. And like, they got some powerlifting on today. Yeah, let's go down to the stadium, check it out. And they sign the kid. I hope it's all worth it. I hope it's
Yeah,
all worth it. And he comes on the podcast and be like, now what's up? Don't feel bad for me. You know what? Don't feel bad for me. This is a good story. I hope, man.
I hope so too. I hope it all works out for him. Whatever his motives are, I hope he finds success in whatever that is. So that's crazy.
World Games will be cool as hell. I'll
Yeah.
say that. If you can only have one this year, and maybe he has one on the here. Look at here's a hope for me. He's going to do World Games. Perfect. That he'll have a great time World Games. If you can only have one, that's a great one. Fine. And on the back end of 2025, dog, he's got a clash with Rondell. I don't care if it's a local meet somewhere in the US. Rondell's back in the IPF. Bobb's in the IPF. Let's go, fellas. You both got we both know what everybody wants now. Let's go. But so we'll see. Somebody's gonna organize it. You know this.
Yeah.
Like a
Hopefully.
rally. Somebody's gonna do SPDs be like, all right. Let's put together a meet. We know we got to do this. Let's bring the big fellas in and let's rumble. But anyways, how exciting is it Rondell's back though?
Yeah, finally, man. Do you know if you can qualify for any international like NAPF? Is that going to be possible or no?
So I know he can make the bench team and break a world record at North Americans.
Okay.
So he'll make an international team and he's got a world record he could break. He's a guest lifter at Powerlifting America. What does that lead to for possible NAPFs? I don't know. Or international competitions. Like Ray Williams has gone to the Asian Championships as a guest lifter. Like there's precedence for international competitions to have guest lifters.
Okay.
So that's not off the table. But exactly how it all unfolds, I'm not sure. It's not entirely apparent to me. But
Yeah. Yeah. So the Rondell return, that's as a fan because I'm a big fan of the sport. Like I said, finally, I even posted it. I just said finally. Like everyone's been waiting. I've been waiting. You've been waiting. Everyone else in the entire sports just all been waiting over, in my opinion, the strongest pound for pound lifter on the planet. I know the docs doesn't favor him too much. He's a 120 at the end of the day, right? So yeah, he's like the man in powerlifting, and it's so sad that he's not been able to lift. And
mm,
also, it's kind of funny now that I get to like, I'm still going to compare my dots against him at nationals.
have to,
Like
have to,
he's gonna be like the guy.
and then be like, I fucking killed you, man.
Exactly. No, but that's actually crazy now because I know he wants to hit around like that 1050 total again, like the one he did at USAPL. So that puts him around like a 600 dots ish, and 983 goes like 607, I believe. So it's very close, and I'm gonna be comparing the coefficients, even though he's lifting tons more than me. Like I don't care. I'm gonna take the dot advantage. I'm gonna be happy with that.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm definitely excited to see what he puts up. But I'm actually really happy for Devon Williams now because he gets to go against Rondell, but it doesn't
Which
matter
is
if
huge.
if he loses, it doesn't matter. He still goes to Worlds, and now he's like he doesn't have Bob to go against either. So it's like Devon Williams has a free ride to Worlds. So very happy for him. He's a great guy, super happy. Like happy go lucky guy type of dude. And he gives off great vibes. Love that dude.
He's a
So
nice guy, huh? He's like
yeah,
a he's like a genuine good dude.
exactly. He's like a big teddy bear, man. And just strong
He
as shit
is.
too.
He is like super friendly, nice guy. And yeah, he's crazy strong. He also, I think he holds the world record bench press, as a matter of fact, in the 120s. But if he may, I don't know who else is on the roster yet for 120s. No disrespect to them, but Dev is definitely the favorite now, I would say. And if
Yeah,
Dev goes to Worlds, he'd probably be the favorite at Worlds now. And frick, never know, huh?
yeah. That
Just
guy's hot.
show up.
He is, like you said, world record bench. His other lists are progressing. He's even if he went head to head with Bob, like you can't overlook him.
No,
If Bob goes 7 for 9, I think he can catch him. Like so, it's not like he was always like a clear cut favorite. Bob, for sure he was the favorite, but not like I said, he has to hit his lifts to go and beat Devon Williams. So yeah, he's always been a threat, but now he gets actual chance to represent himself on the international stage, on the world stage, because he did NAPF, that's international technically, but The world stage is way different,
Mm.
and yeah, he probably can. I think if Bob is actually not doing national like you say, and he ends up going, Devon Williams to nationals, ends up winning, goes to worlds. I'll pick him as the favorite for the 120s. I wouldn't see why not.
Dude, what a story about Big Dev doing nationals, worlds, and then going to Sheffield. And he's like,
Yeah,
holy smokes.
yeah, that's a run. That's a run right
That's a
there.
run. It's literally the epitome of don't worry about who shows up. You just show up. You can already tell yourself in your head, what if this guy shows up? What if that girl shows up? What if they total this? Just show up. Nothing's guaranteed. Anyone can get injured a week out or whatever. Just show up and figure it out. And God, Big Dev might be onto something big. And yeah, Rondell, first foot in the door, and it's a big one, PA Nats. But what doors open up for him beyond that? Who the frick knows? But he's at least he's in there. At least
Yeah,
he's coming. He's come over. His suspension's up. He's in the mix, and I can't wait to see him lift live, man. That would be pretty cool for most people. We haven't seen him lift live. I haven't seen him lift live since 2018, man. How old were
he's the
you in
strongest person in the
2018?
building, man. Because Jesus, he no super heavy that I know of is. Wait, is Ray doing it? Ray might do Nats, right? So that'd be a
Yeah,
cool like head to head. Like obviously not the same weight class. One's a super, one's a 120, but all
yeah.
minds we're going to be comparing them to. So that would be great to see like two Goliaths go. I don't think they're the same day though, right? They're back to back days. So two crazy performances. That's
I'd have
crazy
to
to
double check. Dude, I'm commentating. I don't even know all the schedule or nothing yet, but I'm living like I live my life one day at a time almost. Not quite. I'll do the preview show, so obviously by then I'll be fully caught up. But yeah, but I guess they are. I guess they are not on the same day. We'll see anyways. Um, on that Rondell podcast, and that Rondell podcast like literally just dropped,
I
but
know I've listened to it
already
already.
already, yeah, thank you by the way. Thank you, man. Um, I mean, I knew it was gonna blow with Rondell because like the big announcement, and everyone's like, "Oh shit!" Everybody's been waiting for his return for so long, and now it's booked. But people are in my DMs, including Rory Lynch and Eric Helms, who are my boys, saying, "We got this outlier talk all wrong." So Eric Helms has got a PhD and just full on getting nerdy on me, saying, technically speaking, these other guys and girls would be outliers as well. If you look at standard deviations, etc., this is shit that like your coach would bring up, by the way.
Yeah.
This is those two would get along great, but I'm like, all right, I think Rondell wasn't, maybe the word outlier wasn't fitting, but we're going to keep the word outlier nonetheless. Or we'll say outlier amongst outliers. That's what it is. Are you an outlier amongst outliers? And I want to see, look at Eric Helms listens to KOTL. He supports me. I mean, he's a freaking host on KOTLs. But anyways, this is really what me and Rondell were looking at, were who are the outliers among the outliers, right? And in that case, who do you think are the outliers amongst outliers on the men's side?
Well, first off, I'm gonna say myself. I had to put it on the platform first, but just based off top end potential, I'd put myself up there. Perk, obviously there. Uh, what 851 at nationals? I know he did like 843 at Sheffield, but wasn't the best meet for him. Rondell, clear cut outlier. So that's three right there. I think if Russ has outlier potential based off top end. But whether or not he can bring it together on a platform with a big cut like that and everything, I wouldn't say he is just yet. Maybe at 93 he can become an outlier.
I see. I was going to ask you. I thought you were talking about 93 for a second there.
Oh no, 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 no.
What do you think though? So last time he jumped to 93, he had a 40 kilo jump. He went from the 840s, like you said, to 885.
Right.
Like, what do you think's going to happen now? Could he jump into an outlier status? Because he could have a big jump again.
The thing is with the last jump he had, if we remember at nationals, he did 842 or three, whatever. He won nationals, but he was injured.
Mhm.
So being injured, his top end was nerfed. And I remember going into that nationals, he was putting up like a 910 or 930 total in pound plates or something absurd. So his top,
What?
yeah, you're not you posted these top ends already.
Dog. Again, I live my life one day at a time, and I forget the day behind me.
Yeah, this is before his big cut and everything, I believe. So he was injured going to nationals. He ended up winning nationals anyways with like an 843 or whatever. And then he built some crazy momentum going into North Korea. He was hitting even bigger loads and stuff. So I don't think his top end of nationals was indicative of his actual top end in terms of like in the gym. So I don't think like just moving up will give him that 40 kilos because now he's not injured. He did a super meet this time around. So maybe like 20, 25 kilos initially just for moving up. Not saying he can't put up 40 extra kilos with enough time given. I think he can put up 60 extra kilos with enough time given. Like, but the initial bounce up without having to cut, I give him like 20 to 30. And then more time in the weight class, a year or two. I think he has a potential at least, honestly, for like 950. 950 would be insane. And I think potential wise, I'm saying top end
Right.
potential. I'm not saying you can do it on the platform.
No, that's your prediction for
In his
20.
lifetime, I'll put 950. How about that? In his lifetime, as a 93, I think 950 is on the table for him. At least
You
once in
know
his
what?
life.
You know what? To mend fences on his next post, you put 860 won't be enough. Your next one is 950's there.
I might.
Just
It's just
because you're not gonna show down anymore. So like fuck it. It just changes. It changes from like subtle jabs to like encouragement. Like you got more in you, King. You got 950's there.
yeah, so I got him as a potential outlier for the 93 class. And then Jesus is obviously an outlier for supers. Um, I think it's pretty much it.
I was gonna
Shell's an
say.
yeah, Shell's an outlier. Never mind. That's 770. Yeah, I think that was a higher dots than Rondell, I believe. So that's five already, I believe. And then Taylor, technically he was. Is he now? Not sure. We have to see what he does at nationals.
Mm.
But I think once an outlier, always an outlier. You're not going to lose outlier status because you retired or got injured or top end is lower now. Like it's like an accolade you collect, I believe. Almost like a world champion. You'll never
Oh
not be a
wow.
world champion. You know what I mean? Like once
So
you're an outlier, you're always an outlier for the era given, obviously. Like
okay, okay.
so, like if
Because
you compare,
Rondell was opposite. Rondell was like, you don't get to keep that card.
oh, you don't.
But
You
that's Rondell. That's
okay.
not
Listen,
you,
but
dog.
you get to keep the card, but the card expires. How about that? Like
So
you
that's
get a
what
little
that's.
bit of both.
Wait a minute. You get to keep the card, but it's had an expiration date on it. But you
Exactly.
walk around with that card with the next. When people like, I got an outlier card, I'm like, let me see that shit. I want to see the back of it. And there's a date on the back. Let me see it. Let me see it. And I'm like, 2023. Get the fuck out of here. I ain't
But
doing that tomorrow.
it puts it into perspective as well because outliers back in the day are not the same as today. Like the numbers they're putting up are not nearly as high. But then you can say the same thing about every single sport. Like an NBA champion in 1970, that team ain't beating the teams today. They're still
Right.
NBA champions. They still got the accolade, the title. You can still have the title of the outlier, but just you won't be compared to the outliers of the current age. So, yeah, I think I gave you like six names, including myself. So, uh, potential seven with Russ. And yeah, those are like my, I guess, go-to off the dome. I'm probably missing a couple people, but from what I know of at least right now, those are the outliers, I'd say.
Okay, so that's on the men's side. Let me throw this out here. First off, guarantee you, with everything we said about Eric Helms is shadow boxing. He's gonna leave the house and his wife's like, "What's wrong? I gotta go for a fucking walk. These guys don't understand what outliers and stats do." And he's like, "This is killing me." And I told Eric, "I'm like, we can do a podcast. We can explain outliers, and then we can actually show like statistic deviations from the mean
Yeah.
and all that." But so here's an interesting thought, and this is going to be a question for Eric Collins, but we'll talk about it right now and get people like Eric all wound up in your coach. What's your coach's name again? Sorry.
His name is Luke Eckerly.
Super nice guy. And I love when he was on the podcast. He's solid. And you're lucky you had him. He's for anyone listening, missed that podcast. First off, go back and listen to it. Literally going to school to be a brain surgeon. And I remember like how smart is he? People like, oh come on, you could get this. It's not brain surgery. It's like, no, my man literally is studying brain surgery. All right. So, anyways, that's how smart he is. Like PhDs like Eric Helms and shit.
Yeah.
So you were saying how they might have been an outlier at one point in time, but they wouldn't be an outlier now. And this is interesting because it really changes how you see things. With the stats we had in 2014, we'll go back like, or 2015, we'll go back 10 years. Nice round number. With the statistics we had, we just are looking at, powerlifting totals. From that, only the numbers, you calculate the mean, standard deviations, one, two, three, etc. away from it. Those are your stats. And you would be able to find outliers from 2015. However, I also understand where someone I think like Rondell, if I could speak for Rondell for a second here, would look back and be like, they weren't outliers. The sample size was not big enough. It was inconclusive. You're looking at people who are not genetic outliers. They weren't genetic freaks in the way that he's talking. He's saying like you need to expand out your sample size to actually collect what we think are the genetic freaks. And that's the term he's using for outlier. Now, I know in the, in the sample size, it doesn't matter what you're sampling. You can have an outlier. It doesn't you can have 200 samples and find an outlier in that. So it's still the term outlier. But I think we were just misusing the term outlier, is what it was, right? And so I'm wondering if the saving grace would be like these people are the outlier of outliers. Then fine. If in the 83 kilo class, 860 is enough of standard deviations away to be an outlier. We're saying you got to be the outlier among outliers. So you have to be standard deviations away from whatever. We'll find out whatever the top end is. So anyways, I'm trying to backtrack here. I know Eric Helms is still gonna be my fucking DMs. I didn't do any good. I just wasted my time. He's gonna be like, it just got dumber. What are you doing? Stop explaining. He's like, you're not helping. I'll save it for when he comes on the podcast. On the women's side, what do you see as outliers? Obviously, 47's Turbo Tiff, but Jess is right there.
Yeah.
You got Evie Corrigan, 52s, 57's Natalie, Jad Jacob, Sarah Naldi, the emergence of 63's Meg Scanlon, Alba, 69's you got Agatha,
Yeah.
which is I think we're all in the greens as an outlier. But then Agatha really shuffles how people view things because she's at 71 kilos doing 635, all the way up to Amanda Lawrence, who's 84 kilos doing in the 640s. And this is where, like, honestly, Eric Helms is like, Agatha can't change whether or not Amanda Lawrence is an outlier.
Okay.
But when me and Rondell were talking about it, it was like, yeah, but someone so many weight classes below you was within 10 kilos. I don't know.
So off the women's side, I honestly believe. Okay, so let's take all the nerdy shit, science shit out the way, throw that out the
That's
window.
right. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm
Let's just
talking
talk about
about.
what we feel, right? What we feel. So
Fucking
whatever
nerds.
weight class whatever weight class Agatha decides to be in, that affects whether or not those lifters are outliers, I believe. So if she cuts
That's a
down
fact.
to 63, then if Lies is 63, she no longer becomes an outlier because simply Agatha is right there with her. If she's 69, all her other competitors are not outliers because she is there. She's out totaling everyone by north of 50 kilos. Like, there's no way you can be considered an outlier of outliers. And then you look up and someone's 50 kilos above you. Like, that makes
Hmm.
no sense in my brain. Like, just think about it. Like, feel it. Like, it feels right, right? I don't care
Feels
about the
right.
math. I'm not looking at no graphs right now. So,
Fucking, don't pull me grass. It feels fucking good. Keep going, kid. I
exactly,
love it.
exactly. So,
I love it.
we have a 69-kilo woman totaling just as much, going head to head, neck to neck with Amanda Lawrence, two weight classes above. Amanda was the outlier of outliers at a point. Like I said, she has the card, but her card already expired now.
That's right.
Agatha is I like she's the outlier of outliers of outliers. Like she's like the third like ranked
Sounds like
above.
hey, that sounds like math to me right there. You
All
know what
right,
you just
whatever.
did?
Just outlier cube then. You know.
That's what I'm fucking talking about, man.
um,
Fuck Eric Helms. Fuck that guy.
exactly. So like she's obviously like way above everyone else. But for the sake of argument, let's remove her, I guess, because she makes everything unfair. Even if you take powerlifting as a
No,
whole,
life isn't fair. Life isn't
exactly.
fair. Keep her in. Keep her in.
If you keep her in, and if you just talk about powerlifting in general, then that makes Rondell not an outlier. That makes myself not an outlier. You know what I mean? Like they're like if you talk about the whole sport of powerlifting, like she basically makes everyone else like just elite. Like we're
I'm,
not the elite of the elite anymore now. She kind of
yeah.
ruined it. So let's we can take her out for
Take
now.
her out. Take her out. I don't like it. I don't like the new reality you just gave.
Yeah.
You gave. Take her out.
She ruins my own like ego right there. So
That's
let's
right.
take it out for a second.
Mine too.
Exactly. So without her, it would be a healthy Leah. She's an outlier at 63. Amanda, outlier, even if she doesn't progress anymore, which I hope she does. Um, Sonita, obviously an outlier. Her squat just doesn't make sense in my brain. Like there was a
Yeah.
time in which like there was not a woman stronger than me in any lift, and now there's a woman squatting like 60 pounds more than me. Very humbling. So she's an outlier right then and there. Maybe a fully healthy Natalie is as well. I don't think the 47s like Turbo and um Jesse, I don't think they're outliers just yet because in comparison, like at least their dot score, the coefficients, they're much lower. I think they're like mid fives rather than damn near 600. So I think there's not many outlier, and part of this whole outlier talk is because of the sample size. They have a much smaller pool to pull from. So I believe when they're making these formulas, these coefficients, since the pool is so much smaller, once there's a true outlier on the women's side, like Agatha, their dot score just goes crazy. Like there's nothing comparable because she's an actual outlier. And I would say like genetic wise, she's the same outlier as a guy like Rondell, but because the sample size or the dot formula was made off that sample size, the women around
Mm.
her aren't up to that genetic limit yet. They're not as much of an outlier because like there's not much to pull from, right? But if we're talking about strictly outlier compared to the pool, she's well and beyond everyone. If we're talking about outlier compared to the entire world population and genetic limit, then she's probably similar to us as well. But it's just like I said, the DOF formulas was, or the even the GL points, those are created with the sample size given, and the sample size was so much smaller. But yeah, I think there's more men outliers compared to women outliers, simply because of like Agatha throwing a wrench into everything. So
Well, how about this? And I think as the sport grows, period, you can have a obviously tons more. Well, let's just say, because who knows where we are in terms of popularity of the sport. But let's say you could take all of the top A talent in athletic talent around the world. How many of the people we have currently at the top are still in the conversation for
not
being
one
at
of
the top
us.
of this?
Not
None of
one of
you?
us. I don't think so. That's impossible. The probability of that being true is slim to none. Like how many top end powerlifters are there right now in the world? Less than 100. There's 8 billion people. Oh, let's say 7 billion. Let's round down. 7 billion have never touched weights, or even half of that, 3 billion. Screw it, whatever. There's no way that the little amount of people we have in this sport that we just like the top of the genetic limits, we found this sport accidentally. There's no way. There's so many other people in the world that haven't even touched a weight that have untapped potential. So I don't think like any of us are even near that top end potential. Like, unless I'm just like I don't know, I can't think that I have the best genetics in the world. There's no way. Like not like I can't look in the mirror and be like, "Yo, this is like the peak human potential right here." I
Would,
don't think that. There's no way.
hey, I tell you what, I guarantee you Russ does.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But like it also depends on how you grew up in the sports science and training years and all that combined. So if we're talking about purely genetic potential, none of us at the top end right now are at that are pushing that threshold. There's sleeping giants out there that we don't even know of and probably will never know of because they're not picking up weights or they're in different sports, different athletics. But yeah, I don't think our genetics are vastly superior to everyone else's. We have great genetics. We have elite genetics. We have top 10, top 5, top 1% genetics, and we just happen to find a sport that we enjoy. But I don't think we have the 0.0001% of genetics out of that 8 billion in population. So yeah, I don't think even probably like 20, 30 years, we'll see the talent pool increase to a point where it's like probably triple the size of it is now. And then we'll start seeing even greater genetic outliers. But I don't think we'll ever experience like the top of the top because powerlifting is just so niche. And I don't think it'll ever grow to the point where there's millions of people doing it every single day. Not saying it can't grow and athletes can't make a living off it. It'll never get to that point. Like Sheffield is obviously blowing up, doing great things. But I don't think we'll ever get to the point of like, American football or NHL or MLB or basketball. So yeah, we'll see though. We'll see in a couple of years, but I don't think any of us have the, like I said, the cream of the crop genetics in terms of like the rest of the population, like that 0.01%.
So what's interesting to me, the thought that there could be somebody walking around out there who's never touched a barbell and never will, but they had the genetic potential to like smoke somebody like Rondell is
Yeah.
crazy to think about. It's absolutely insane to think about. I don't know if you're familiar with the Francis Ngannou story, but he's from Cameroon,
Yeah, I know.
and it was crazy for him to get to the US and find America. And then from America, rest is history. For those who don't know, won the UFC title, and it's nuts. But how many people are never going to make that journey? First to France, risked his life several times over, and then made it to America, and then made it to a sport. He wasn't even initially chasing. He wanted to be a boxer first. Some people never will through life, through whatever, or it doesn't even cross their mind. Powerlifting. There's so many other things by the time it's just so many other things in front of them. It's weird to think that. So the one thing though I'll say is like, what about if you have athletes, just athletes, already discovered athletes? Where do you think our athletes compare against athletes? Not guys like Francis Ngannou who might be like in a different part of the world where they just can't get themselves into a position of playing sport. It's just not on their table. Because the world is like, to your point, 8 billion, God knows. Now we've sized it down to the big sports, maybe some niche sports you might think about. But where do you guys rank compared to those people if those people chose, I'm going to go powerlifting? Think you still get pushed off the table?
Maybe not for like probably the big name sports because like and like basketball, for example, those guys are those guys are too tall to be powerlifters.
Yeah,
They're
dog.
not. They're,
You see LeBron squat, it is ugly. All right, I come out of retirement right now, whoop his ass. I'll tell you that right now.
Probably would. Yeah, he probably would. Like,
Right? Eric Helms, I'm a fucking outlier. Watch your mouth.
hey, he's
Watch
the
your mouth.
outlier of outliers, man. He's
He's an outlier of outliers.
so. But yeah, like basketball players, they're not gonna make noise in powerlifting. Football
No,
players,
sir.
maybe some of the football players, like if they're below that 6 foot mark, they could probably put up some good damage. But they'd have to be like the 120s or like supers at 6 foot, so they'd have to put up a lot of weight. And then I'm not sure how tall like NHL guys are. Like, are they like considered mass monsters? Are they like 6 foot plus, or are
Th-
they close to the
You got
ground?
some fellas, you definitely have some large gentlemen. There's no question, but they're built different. So I did like strength and conditioning like years back for these hockey players that are trying to make it into like the OHL, which is like the feeder league for NHL here in Canada. And they're genetically gifted, but not usually in strength so much from what I've seen. Strong fellas, like definitely like compared to the average Joe, like yeah, they're for sure, but not like you guys. Not that
Gotcha,
I saw anyways. And from what I've seen, hockey players are not usually like that. I'm sure there's a few freaks, but it's different.
gotcha. But yeah, there's so many sports. I just named like three or four, but out of the countless amount of sports, even weightlifting, that's a big one right there. And
Well,
there's
yeah.
so many more weightlifters than there are powerlifters on the planet, I believe. So their sport's a little different, obviously a lot more like technique oriented, but some of those guys are massive. Like I've seen some like 70-kilo squatters and they're putting up like 300 kilos on their back, ass to grass, high bar, no belt or nothing, or maybe like a Velcro belt. I'm like, what the? Like, this makes no sense in my brain. And they're hitting well beyond that powerlifting depth, right? So people like that, I think, can easily push us off the radar and like just make us irrelevant if they decided to switch over or if they just decide to powerlift younger rather than weightlift. But yeah, it all depends on the sport in which they're coming from. If it's more of like a static or explosive, strength oriented sport, then obviously they do better. If it's more speed or endurance where height matters and length matters, then obviously that's not going to work well in powerlifting. But yeah, I think there's at least the athletes in today's day and age, with the amount of money they make, with the people they can hire, with the sports science they got, they can definitely push out like majority of us off the field or off the platform and probably do a lot better than us. But thankfully, they're getting paid for what they do, and we found a little sport that we decide to enjoy and progress at.
Cutoff is 900 kilos, Playboy. You make it.
Yeah,
Relax.
all right, Ben, then perfect,
Relax. You
perfect.
got it. You'll make it. You know what's interesting to me? So I don't know if there's like a video that was circulating that went viral. I'm not a football guy, American football, but there was a couple big name American football guys, jacked, who went to Japan and like did sumo wrestling with some of the sumo wrestlers. And legit, like I mean, so they blast off of the offensive line and they're like they're used to clashing and pushing you back the whole nine, right? And this other sumo wrestler, who obviously he was big but didn't look as jacked, anyways. And this American football player was like scary jacked, all right? Like you picture as muscular as we got, only he's like 6'3" and like way like he's huge. The sumo guy was like toy, like they showed his face. The American was giving it, and the sumo guy was like smiling, laughing. Being like, this is funny. This is like I'm wrestling my child here. It was crazy. And there's difference in strength. Like I don't know if you've ever tinkered with arm wrestling, but you got Larry Wheels, who we all know Larry Wheels, jumped into arm wrestling, and there's a professional arm wrestler called Schoolboy. And he wears glasses. He's got like a baby face. He's like in his 20s, but he's got a baby face, so he looks like he's like 17. That's why his nickname's Schoolboy. And he's not huge. He's kind of like big, but he's by no means like I mean a fraction of what this is Larry Wheels.
Yeah,
Untested and like deadlifting 900 pounds, Larry Wheels. In Schoolboy schooled Larry Wheels. And it's you just put your arm on the table and you rock and roll. And I understand there's definitely technique to arm wrestling, but you would think the strength, overall central nervous system strength discrepancy would win the day. But there is definitely difference in strength. It's very difficult to put your finger on. Strength is a funny thing. Right down to right now in strongman. I don't know how much attention you pay to strongman, but Mitch Hooper, who's Canadian, I had him on the podcast. He actually doesn't live far from me. Mitch Hooper is like won like back-to-back titles in strongman, Arnold Classic. Like he's winning all the major titles in strongman. And Mitch Hooper says, like, look he had a picture with him and Jesus Oliveras, and he's like, Jesus Oliveras in static strength is stronger than me. And if you asked me whose body can generate more strength, Jesus Oliveras is the strongest man in the world. And that's Mitch. That's Mitch saying this. Hooper, who is like he's literally running what he's doing right now in strongman. People are like, this guy looks unstoppable. He's like the next goat. He's just destroying guys, laying waste to them. And he did this in his second year, sorry, in strongman, and he won the world's strongest man title, second year competing. He's a freak. And but he's strong in certain elements where it's drag, throw, like strongman. So strength is so peculiar. You can't quite put your finger on it. Like you said, there's Olympic weightlifters, power lifters, and just because you could be phenomenal in Olympic weightlifting, it doesn't mean you're going to come over. In the 47 kilo class, Turbo Tiff has already beaten the world record that was held by I forget the lady who was an Olympic champion in weightlifting. She crossed over and did powerlifting. And Turbo Tiff's already well beyond that. It doesn't mean you cross over, you bump us out necessarily. It's interesting. It's interesting. So I don't know. It's a conversation that I understand where it's easy to be like, no, man, these guys would cream us. But on the flip side, they might have certain assets that are maybe, if you want to test overall athletic prowesses, they're way more than you. But if we were just like, no, fuck that. Let me see you squat and you take however long you want to join our sport. They might never beat Jesus Oliveira. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's interesting. But they might be stronger. They might end up stronger than you in other facets. Like if you wrestled or arm wrestled or I don't know.
Mm.
I'm not sure, dude. It's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't argue that. Can't argue that. There's depth. Well, we'll never know because we grew up in this sport. A lot of us have. So the way we've expressed our genes and everything also play into account. And then our mindset and then how we've developed our tissues and all. So maybe if they didn't take the route of their sport and their
Mm.
introduction of lifting was powerlifting and not, Olympic weightlifting, like we said, maybe then they could have been where we have been or beyond that. But maybe not the initial switch, like one sport to another. It's like they've already made their adaptations, their genes already express themselves, they're set in stone in that factor. So switching over is gonna be a little hard. But if they just never went down that route and instead went the route of powerlifting, maybe then we can compare the two. But it is pretty hard to even like speculate this.
It's still fun though.
Yeah, it is.
And then you have um I forget the super chess master. He was on Rogan like not too long ago
Oh, Carl
and he was
Magnus.
talking
Magnus.
yeah,
Carlson. Wait, Magnus Carlson. There. Magnus Carlson. Got it.
Magnus Carl. He sounds like a strong man for God's sake. But
Yeah.
right? But
Genius.
uh but I love hearing about outliers and like
Yeah.
these you know, just freaks who do what they do. And he was talking about like, I think he was asked the person who's going to become like the next you. Like they were asking like, what if they started? Like, when did you start? And he goes, I started late. And how late did you start? He goes, oh, fuck, probably like 8.
Yeah.
And it was like,
I saw the podcast. It was hilarious when
you
he's like, oh
started
my,
late,
like he's talking
8.
about that one kid. He's like, yeah, there's a really good guy in India. He's so good. He's like a 2000 player. And I'm like, oh, how old is he? He's like, yeah, the guy is 3. And I was like, what? I was like,
Yeah.
he
But like,
mentioned it as a
you,
guy, not even as a kid. He's like, yeah, that guy is 3. Like he's a
he
peer or
said
something.
guy. I was like, excuse me, don't refer to him as a guy. First off, the guy's a freaking push that kid over if he gets, all right? That's enough. This is if he beats me in chess, it's like that. I'm gonna push you over and take your lunch money. What is going on? You're 3? And how
Yeah.
are you 3 years old tuning people up in chess? Like that's
Uh,
crazy. I swear to God, at 3 years old, I was burying my GI Joes when they died in combat, and I never played with them again. And that was made sense to me at the time. I don't. This is crazy. Some kids play chess and tune people up on the international scene. I don't
yeah.
know, man. It's freaking wild.
Hey, they're outlier. They have the mental and the IQ of outliers because which I don't understand how people can they're okay with like mental outliers in the sense of like intellect, but once they see a genetic outlier in strength, they're automatically like, nah, they're cheating or something. I'm like, I think it's more impressive to be that smart than this strong. Like if I were to be able to switch my physical for that mental like strength, I guess, then I'll take that in a heartbeat. Like being
Would you
smart
really?
of course, like being smart is such an advantage in life. Like there's nothing greater than a smart mind or like a super high IQ. Like you can problem solve anything. You can get through life pretty not easily, but you're not one step ahead. You're like 10 steps ahead. Like Magnus Carlsen, that guy, like he probably can map out the entire. Like I actually watched a YouTube video on him. I've been deep diving since the Rogan podcast.
It's so fascinating,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is. And I was like, he did like a speed match against 10 people blindfolded and remembered the pieces on every single board of 10 players and beat every single person. Like I said, blindfolded and going out of order too. So imagine being able to remember 10 game boards, each and every piece, and being able to like do this all without seeing them. Like that's I can't even comprehend that. Like I would if you're asking me to total or trade my 900 total for that ability, I'm doing
Yeah,
that with a heart. There's no way. I love lifting and all, but I you can't train an IQ to be that high. You can train your body to get so much stronger. You'll always adapt, but you can't have brain adaptations like that. Man, that's insane.
you know what? Okay. So here's some. this is a really interesting conversation, by the way. But um, I for sure have met people who are extremely smart and they don't necessarily get through life easier because a lot of there is for sure something that is social intelligence and they don't get by in social situations. I'm not just talking, I mean, even at work, where going up the ladder, like you're not going to be Carlson, like that level. We're talking, you could be super smart. You're not a freaking chess master. You just graduated from a great university, etc. But it depends on where that takes you. It's not necessarily like in terms of thinking your way out of situations, you'd be surprised how an extremely smart person in their life can make really dumb decisions like because it's social. Like they can't read people, they can't read the play. They and you're like, what are you doing? And it's you'd be surprised. I don't know. And also on top of that, so again, I'm not talking about the crazy chess master. I agree with you. In terms of would you swap to be the top of this or the top of that? I'm not entirely sure because I kind of like you know, I'm not entirely sure I'd swap it. It depends. Can he be jacked? I mean, I gotta be lifting weights, Playboy. I gotta look good with my shirt off. Forgot. Look at call me vain, but my nickname is Six Pack Lapadat, and this is you, you know I'm an asshole if that's my nickname. But the thing is like it isn't necessary. It depends on There's definitely a thing of social intelligence and you can see that. And I don't know. That's another thing that's hard to measure. Intelligence can be difficult to measure. There are even people with high IQs that don't end up doing anything. They measured extremely high IQs and actually in their careers don't do anything. It's also kind of like strength where
Yeah.
it's not all the same. It doesn't apply just like strength doesn't apply. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation right across the board.
Mm.
It's funny that we found parallels there, but it really is. There's different type of intelligence. Like for instance, you look at like leaders of nations or whatever. They're not. Almost never do we say they're the smartest person of that nation, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like CEOs or those who have climbed to the top. They're almost never the smartest person in that company. Um, it's interesting, my man. I don't. But for sure they have a different type of intelligence. How the hell did they get there? I don't
It's more
know.
than just intelligence too. It's like how you handle stress,
Yeah.
uh, your social skill, like you said. So it's a combination of a bunch of things. How aggressive you are, like
Yeah.
whether you're okay to be like, are you okay to back down? Like if you're a leader, you're not conceding a lot. You're going to be more of an abrasive person. Like you're gonna have that personality type. But yeah, if I were able to, how about this? If I were to able to keep all of my emotional and social behaviors but just add that intelligence, then I'd make the trade. How about that? But like if it comes with being like very awkward and not being able to like present myself, then I'm not making the trade. It's not gonna be worth it because I'll just be like stuck in my mind the whole time. But I'm not obviously coulda, woulda, shoulda. I like where I am right now. I'm not gonna like I'm not regretting not being a grandmaster in chess. Like I like 900 kilo totals. Don't worry. I'm not leaving the sport.
You had to start 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, you're 20 years too late. There's
I don't have the
no,
IQ for that. I'm not that intelligent. I can play chess. I'm just not that good.
yeah, I could play. Actually, fuck, I probably forgot the rules. I haven't played it. But I can figure it out. I can pick it
I'll
back
do it.
up. It's never too late, they say, right? It's never too, we'll see. We'll see. No, it's interesting. I was actually, before we got off on this, which is an interesting type of sidestep, and I'm sure there's other people who are into chess and listen to this somehow. Probably Eric Helms again. He probably fucking loves chess and he probably hates this entire podcast. We hit up so many things that he's going to be so upset about. Whatever, it is what it is. Um, I was going to ask you as well. We were talking about formulas, we were talking about like rivals, etc. Do you have goals in terms of setting yourself up to be like a perk pound for pound, or do you feel like as an 83 that would be something out of reach?
Oh, definitely not because the 983 is already, I think, within like 5 points of the dot formula. against perk. So I think like a 910 total puts me above that already. And if I'm already at 900, I think 910 is very, very close. So I definitely have goals in the future, not this meet, but in the future to be, set apart and being the pound for pound, I guess, king, like you call it. But yeah, I think it's definitely in the cards. It's not going to be like too far out of reach unless Perk just puts up like 900 at 74. If he does that, then I'm kind of cooked, not gonna lie. But if he stays around that like the 850, 860, 870-ish, I think I can make a run for it. Just not this year, and obviously not at Worlds. I'm not gonna try to push up that world record if I don't have to. But yeah, I think it's in the cards within the next like 2 years, I'd say, to claim that pound for pound title.
Because I crunched some numbers. I was curious myself. Yeah, 912.5 beats Perk if he's 860.
Okay.
That's giving Perk 860
Yeah.
on dots. Um, so we would be in GL points, you would as well. Like GL points is actually a little easier for you to catch up to him. You keep using dots, I noticed. Why do you think that is? Do you think you're going to switch to GL points now that you're going to end up, pursuing world games?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to. I don't know dot or the GL points by heart right now. Because I was in USAPL for the longest. I just switched over a year ago, so dots is like what I'm well versed in. But over time, as I get more into the IPF ecosystem and all, I'll be able to like pull out the GL points off the top of my dome, right? But like, right now, I just don't got that knowledge. I can't do the
It's
conversions anymore.
it's such a North American thing. Like in Canada, we do dots too, like just whatever. We're used to seeing it.
Yeah.
But over in Europe, like it's all IPF, obviously, right? And they have like no people. There's been Americans at the World Championships talking to some of the European stars and asking, like, talking about dots. And the Europeans are like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what my dots are. Actually, there's some. The man who made dots is from Germany,
Okay.
Timmy. And he was on the podcast way back when he made dots. And he's from Germany, super nice guy actually. And I haven't had him like I haven't talked to him in years. But back in around 2019, I had him on the podcast, and he actually was telling me I created a new formula. It's called dots, and I think it's more accurate and more fair throughout the all the weight classes. And if you would have told me that dots would have blew up in America and the untested division, but not be big in Europe. And that's only because the IPF. And I think some events in Europe will use it. It's crazy. And I don't even know if he would have predicted this will be big in America in the untested, but not over in like Europe. It's not going to be nearly as, I'm not entirely sure. And obviously with the untested, they don't have a lot of that direct competition. So you need some formulas to use this. But like how much do you put weight on formulas?
If there's nobody in the class, and I guess it's pretty good to use as a comparison against others, but obviously, number one thing is titles, accolades, because accolades don't expire unless it's the outlier accolade. I guess that expires. But world championships, titles like that, they're set forever. They're set in stone. You're always going to remember who the champion was, no matter what your total was, no matter what your dots was. And one of the arguments that you put up in the past was like, depending on the year, a different winner can be given based off the
That's
formula
right.
given. So a GL points versus Wilks versus dots. You can use any one of these. And with GL points being adaptive, it changes throughout the years. Like I think every 5 years GL points are updated. So just even that within itself, like you can be changing the best lifter of different world championships year after year, year after year after year, depending on the iteration of the GL points, right? Or like I said, dots or Wilks. So I think that is a decent step below the accolades like Sheffield appearances, Sheffield titles, and then world championships. But yeah, I think there's also a bunch of different accolades you can collect as well, like just world records, even, or being best lifter in your era. There's a bunch of different things that you can collect. And I think GL points or those coefficients are a step below all of them, but they're still
Yeah.
very, very valuable into comparing you versus your peers at the time given, at least. So I wouldn't be mad at having the highest dots. So I'm not gonna say that now. If I had the highest dots, I'd be pretty happy, or the highest GL points, I'd be pretty happy. But yeah, I think for sure, like a world title is drastically outweighs it. But then it also get take into consideration like the totals are putting up. So I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but previous years with the 66s, I'm not saying they're weak. They just weren't as entertaining due to the sheer loads they're lifting compared to like the 74s or 83s, especially like these recent years before Shell. So, like, yes, they're world champions. Yes, their championships matter. But since they're not as impressive to the eye and to the other lifters, I wouldn't value their title as worthy as like a 83 or 93 where there's more battles and they're actually up in that coefficient score as well. So I think coefficient scores have their use. You can compare whether or not a title is considered worthy or impressive to an extent or not. But at the end of the day, a title's a title. It's still worth something, but not all titles are worth the same, if that makes sense.
Put it this way. If we were to look at, and I'll expand this actually, if we were to look at early powerlifting again, 2014, 15, if I was to ask you back then, if you were a world champion in 2014, 15, even if we all understand that the standard is so much further ahead now, 10 years later, but we at least know you won the world title. And for us to get here, you had to do what you did in 2014, 15. And for the sport to grow and even in popularity, we needed a world championships in 2015. We needed people to watch it, to be inspired to take up the sport. And then they come around 2015, or sorry, 2020ish. And then 5 years later, you're watching them, you get inspired, whatever. And then you come around 2025. You need those people. They have their placement in history. So when we look back, we all understand what happened. We understand that at the time, everybody wasn't at this level. But at the time, the best in the world all came to one spot, battled it out, and you won. I get that. But if you told me in 2015, I had the highest dots at one point in July, I'll be like, you did that at a local meet. That's right. At a local meet in July, a random local meet. I mean, that's September. Someone took it. But 2015 for 2 months, I had the highest dots. Um, I'll be like, all right. No, even better, it wouldn't be dots, it'd be Wilks. A formula we don't even use. Just to tell you how formulas change so quickly. That puts into perspective what it means to have the highest formula at any given point in time. I promise you nobody's going to give a shit. You need titles. And why Perk is who he is because he's a world champion, breaking world records, and he's got all three formulas. So he's undisputed pound for pound because he's got all three. So with these combined, okay, now you have it hits different. But if you're going to tell Perk, like, do you just want you want to do local meets and have formulas, and he's seen the changes of all of them, or do you actually want to start winning titles, breaking world records? It's going to hit different. Even a world record. If you told me 10 years ago I broke a world record, I know now that world record ain't going to mean shit. In every sport, that's the case. Same with track and field or anything. The 10 years later, the records aren't going to mean shit. But I also know at one point in time, you had to do an international competition and you were the best in your time. But in other sports, they also have formulas. And if you told me at a random local meet, I had the best formula that year for like a month, I'll be like, okay. Did you have the world record? No, well, no, I didn't have the world record. I was lighter in my weight class though. So my total to my body weight was the best at the time. So you had the world record. That sounds like a world record. Well, no, because the weight class is pretty big. And I just, the way it worked actually, I'd be like, the fuck are you talking about? If you have to explain to me this much, there's too much explanation. You lost me. Time is going to forget you. I promise. I promise.
No, you're right. You're right. Well,
Wait,
like I said, it's a plethora of like all the different things. So, to have the title of the best lifter pound for pound on the planet, it takes a world championship and the formula together.
right.
And then you can say like at a time I was the best lifter in my era, which means something, right? Like Bill Russell is the best basketball player from the 60s, right? Like I'm not saying he's the GOAT, but he was the best in his era based off his accolades, based off his championships. So I'm not like he's not going to be able to compete in today's day and age, but he was still the best in the era. So it's like dots, like I said, it's the lowest of the rankings of everything, but it plays a part in whether or not you have that title. And like you have the best dots, the highest total. If it's not done on a big stage against other people, it also doesn't matter. So you
Right.
need all these different components to form your pound for pound or best lifter on the planet title, and then that title itself holds a lot of value. And I think it holds more value than a world championship. Like if you had, because to even be considered the best pound for pound or best lifter on the planet, you need the prerequisite of a world championship, at least in my
Agreed.
opinion. So like it that title itself is the undisputed like highest, in my opinion, title you can hold, best lifter. I was like I'm the best lifter of like the 2010s, for example. That's an era in which you dominated and you need the championships, you need the battles, you need the big stage, you need the coefficient, you need all of it. But yeah, I guess like that's my take on it. That's not too controversial, hopefully not, unless people like are really big on the chips and oh, championships only matter. I guess I don't know.
Like I think for sure I agree with you. Like if Perk never won a world title, never win international, but only had the formulas and he's like, I'm the pound for pound king, people who are close would be able to point to him and say, like, you are dodging competition and hiding behind coefficients. Like you cannot make that claim until you come and play at the tippy top. That's what sports is all about. And then if you, to your point, first you win, you are the world champion, and then you point to all the accolades. 100%. It definitely hits differently. But in terms of there, I guarantee you, I promise you, there are people in the untested that don't have those titles, and they will have to fight this argument because they don't have a clear pathway. Unless you're John Hack, then it gets a lot easier. But it's a lot more difficult to try to create statements. World records are help to an extent, but I mean, whatever. Don't want to veer too far off of like, were these world records? Again, I said in most sports, you have to be at an international event to have a world record for a lot of good reason. If you tell me that there's pick a random nation on the other side of the world held a local meet and some guy broke your world record. They took your, let's say you do 900 and some guy did 902.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, really? Where was that? Well, was that a gymnasium? The local gym that this guy lives at held a competition, and the locals there were the referees. What about the drug testing? Well, I mean, it's a local meet. And you'd be like, that doesn't sound right. How do we make this fair? Well, how about this? Every other sport does this, including us. You need an international competition with international refs so there's no bias, and then we decide if it's a world record. Yeah, that's probably going to solve the problem. Would you be comfortable with that? Yeah, I think I'd be a little more comfortable with that. Boom. And it kills me that some people in like untested don't get that. They're like, that's stupid. It's like, no, the opposite is stupid. You need, otherwise you don't have standards. That's why you have federations that hold you to standard, and everybody's got to pay attention. Everyone shows up. We all have representatives from all over the world there, so there can't be bias, can't be any sneaky stuff going on. Did he make weight? Did he? When did he make weight? Was it a 2 hour weigh-in? Are those plates calibrated? Was there equipment check? Was it? Like, do I take your word for it? Or can we have a bunch of people internationally flew in who have no association with you and they say yes? Okay, I'm more comfortable with that. That's why we do it. Some
True
people
that.
don't understand that.
I'd also argue that world records should only be done at world meets,
Ooh.
not because the Europeans have like 10 opportunities to break records. They have like Eastern Euros, Western Euros, Arnold. Like, what are all these different competitions? We got two. We have IPF Worlds and NAPF. That is it. So I don't think like for someone to travel 2 hours to a Eastern Euros meet and break a world record, that's basically local for you. I travel the same distance to North Carolina, and mine's a local meet considered a local meet. So if you can't represent the entire world at the meet, it shouldn't be a world record, in my opinion. I think there should be international, regional records, whatever, but a world record should be done on the world stage or at Sheffield because that's a representation of everyone across the globe. So I'm not throwing any shade at
Hmm.
anyone in particular, but I'm just saying world records should not be done
Who is
at
it?
very niche.
Who is it? And why do you hate him so bad?
I don't. I don't. I don't. But yeah, I'm just saying like it shouldn't be such a niche thing. Like Western or Eastern Euros is such like a subset of countries that have the same population of probably like two states in America. Like there's no way that's a world meet, but it is what it is. They get their opportunities, I guess. But yeah, we all know that America is like the meat grinder of competition, and we don't have many opportunities out here to represent ourselves on the world stage. So.
What I would so yeah, like I agree that for sure if the competition itself has international refs, cool, but then America could say we have international refs who do the refing at our national level American nationals. We still can't call it an international. So an international record, a world record. So, but I do like that there is international refs at a Western or Eastern Euros. However, to your point, you could say, yeah, but listen, you have Western, Eastern, you got Euros, and then on top of that, there's other like you have the Commonwealth Championships. You have, there's other Canada's part of the Commonwealth, so we have that as well. But like Americans don't. Like you guys have it worse than us, and we're both North American. Like you, I even feel bad. Like Canadians have more kicks at the can than you do, man. You didn't know. I don't know if you realize you guys might have the one of the worst of anybody. But and even to make a world team is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or the meat grinder you have to go through. Um, but yeah, I think I don't know. The one thing I'll say is I do like that the European Championships is as coveted as it is. Like to be a European champion, everyone knows how strong Europe is in powerlifting these days. So to be a European, win a European title doesn't mean nothing. Like you show up and like you look at who's European champions, and some of them are world champions. So you have to beat a world champion if you're going to win that European title. I like that. And I wonder if breaking world titles or world records, sorry, at Euros helped make it that to popularize it, maybe to a degree. So I don't want to negatively impact growth in a region. However, on the flip side, you could start saying, why don't we put more respect on European records then? If there's so many European stars, why don't we do we have a lot of respect on American records? You're American. How much respect do you feel on the American records? Or do you think it's not as coveted as it should be?
I don't really look too much into the
Okay,
like
that
the
says
country.
everything I need to know.
Yeah, like I look mainly at the world records because that's what matters the most in my point of view. Like I said, we only have two opportunities to break world records, and we think the world record is super coveted over here. Like this is like that's number one thing because we have such few opportunities for it. So
Mm,
maybe if we had a lot more opportunity to break these records, we'd not view it as such a high regard and we'd view nationals as similar to the world record. But since everyone could break a world record at like a regional meet in America or a national meet, or like NAPF or Worlds, for example, like we just don't view it to the same regard. At least I don't. Like I can't give you the records off the top of my head for even my own weight class. Like I think the bench is like 210 kilo. Russ's squat is the world or the national record now, and I don't know what the deadlift
mm.
is. I'll have to research this before the meet because I'll have the chips to play with.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
I have chips on bench and deadlift. I know that for sure. Because I'm well above both of them. So, but I don't know the exact number in which they are. So yeah, like I couldn't give you a real answer of like how prestigious a national record is because I just don't view it that way at all.
Yeah, I do think, like, obviously, I think Sheffield should have world records. It has to. But you raise an interesting point. Should world records be reserved for, we'll say, worlds in Sheffield and world games, obviously? So
Yeah,
those three. It's interesting. Should you get more selective? I know why, but what happens to, like North Americans?
regional records. That's what it is. It's a regional meet. It should be a regional record. Oh, that's
How do we make North Americans more popular?
tell SBD to run it. I don't know, man. SBD will find a great way to find North Americans and make
They're
it more
pretty
popular.
good.
But I think, well, since USAPL is kind of like dying out, so to say, more people are switching over to PA. Powerlifting is becoming more popular, and more people are taking this route to go to NAPF, like Gavin did, Devon Williams just did. So it is getting more and more prestigious as the years go on. So I think just we have to grow powerlifting as a whole within the sport, or within the country, and just let Powerlifting America just continue to ascend and rise. And I think naturally NAPF will just become more prestigious because more and more people, more and more elite athletes will not make the world's team and opt to do the NAPF instead. So that's like, I guess it's just naturally going to expand. And right now, it's going to be a little hard because I said there's like a split with USAPL and PA. But as they begin to die down and PA begins to rise up, then NAPF will just naturally follow suit. So that's like my
I,
take.
the biggest issue is this bottleneck again. You can only have an American team of one person a weight class. And so then who are they going up against? Canada's got a couple hitters and a couple weight class, not enough to rival America to make it. This is where the viewership thing comes. If it's if it's just people showing up, showing out, might kind of sort of work. But you kind of do want some showdowns. And who's going to rival Team USA in those respective weight classes to have true showdowns? Europe works because you have, I don't know how many countries are part of the EPF, but you have tons and you have stars that show down because these different Italy, France, UK, all of these different nations, Spain are all going to clash. So you have tons. You have it's filled with different people who are going to clash. But North Americans, you like Canada's got some good lifters, but you're not going to have a lot of clashes, a lot of showdowns. If America was allowed to send like Group A, Group B, and they all scrap it out for, all right, we're going to have some showdowns. That's why American Nationals is going to be way bigger than North Americans, even though North Americans is international. And that's the bottleneck problem that we have in North Americans. That's where, if they could do guest lifters, let's say one a weight class, and just throw them out there. So you have like an extra star that shows up. All right. Because you will like Rondell can show up. So you could legit, you can't because Bobb didn't go to North Americans, but you could in theory have Rondell, Bobb, and then of course throw in like Canada, blah, blah, blah. Like you can have it decent enough. It's just not enough weight classes like that.
That's right.
We don't have the depth.
No, man. Because I know SBD is doing like their more like local style meets in the US for the competitors that don't end up winning nationals, like Raleigh was. I assume they're having another one this year, so maybe that's going to rival NAPF and like it's going to affect the route of a lifter, which way they're going to go. Because Gavin could have went to or Gavin could have went to the Raleigh meet, but chose NAPF to break the record. So that dilutes the pool even further. So yeah, I don't know. Just ask SBD to run the meet, man. I don't know. I can't give you a good answer.
Or you could get North American Federation to sanction a competition. It's not the North American Championship. It could be a North American Cup. And then it's international competition, so world records can fall. And SBD runs this or sponsors it. And all of a sudden, it doesn't got to be one person from America in the 83s. You could have three Americans, two Canadians, a Jamaican, and all, just whatever makes the best showdown. And now we're cooking. And then you got world records. You got like some real showdowns. Because look at the 83s, man. There's too much talent there. And only one of you are going to worlds. That's crazy. Same with the 93, same with a bunch of the weight classes, to be honest. Um, I don't know. But I do eventually somebody's going to sort something out to be like, this is international. You could break world records here. There's money, the production. I agree. SBD's phenomenal. Run Rally was amazing. SBD's phenomenal with it. Partner up with an SBD, partner up with NAPF, and let's get some other options for people. And then all of a sudden, Americans will be like, oh, we can break world records other places too. Like Jamar Royster is like, God damn, how do I get this record? You know, you got people who could break squat world records or all types of records who are like, damn, this is tough. It's a tough hand. But I don't know, buddy. We'll see. Dude, we went all over the place in this podcast, huh?
Yes. Talking about chess for a little minute right there.
I don't even know where we started. I don't know how we got here. For a second there, I swear to God, we're talking about a 3-year-old playing chess. And, and that might have been the highlight. That might you were gonna wake up Monday morning and SBD is gonna drop that clip. And you're gonna see the collab request. Be like, what the fuck? This is what but no, it won't be SBD. It'll be like the Chess Federation. You're like, well, I didn't see that coming. All right. All right. We're big. But anyways, listen, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Much appreciated. Always a good time having you on. Good luck training with PA Nats. I'm super excited. I 100% have faith that 900 is going to fall. And that's really the big question is 900. And if you are the first official 83 to cross that milestone, everybody remembers it was freaking last summer the 93s crossed 900. For an 83 junior to do this, it will be freaking amazing. And no less against two former world champions, multiple time world champions and how stacked the 83s are with like Sean, Angelo, Perez, and a bunch of guys who are going to show up. It's a stacked, super stacked class, my man. So good luck. I'm so freaking happy that I'm going to be commentating the battle of the 83s. And then from there, dude, we'll take it from there. We'll do another podcast. We'll take a look at if everything goes well. If you do 900, if everything goes well, we'll take a look at the future from there and we'll have some conversations, my man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'll show out to the best of my ability. And if 900 is there, I'm loading it 100%.
My man, let it drop. Let it drop. Because if you make it the worlds, I mean, it depends what you got to put up. You know the name of the game.
Yeah.
It's that dicey proposition, win, but don't win too much. And sometimes you're like, you know what? I just got to do what I got to do. If the competition gets too tight and Ade is just like an absolute beast, Jones is a beast, and you're like, no, I got to go 900 all over again. I got to go all in. Who knows? It is what it is. But thanks for coming on, sir. We'll talk in the DMs. And for everybody listening, as per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings. And until next time, six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.